Hello and welcome to the very seventh episode of no longer the newest show on the Stat Check Network, the second newest show on the Stat Check Network. It's episode 7 of Take All Comers, a hammer by any other name. I'm one of your hosts, Tyler Bortel, and I am joined by my wonderful co-hosts,
Nicholas Olsen Johnson,
and the illustrious
Lucas Trolla.
And today is the day of all days because today is a quick and dirty GT coverage covering the quickest and dirtiest GT of the year. It's the Rosehammer 2 coming at you hot and fresh from Portland, Oregon. It's a local. We don't get those a lot, so we love to cover it. But before we jump into any of the games and any of the breakdowns, I got to check in with the boys. How are we doing today, Lucas?
I'm doing fantastic, honestly. It's been a couple of busy weeks now, but feeling pretty good. Got a relaxing weekend this weekend, which is pretty fun. And coming out of Rosehammer, feeling pretty good and excited to play some Warhammer. So starting to get some kind of sense of what's good in the Tau book, which is pretty cool. That seems like a pretty cool index. And I've always really enjoyed that the Kalyon had a very distinctive play style, and it seems like the new detachments also have very distinct play styles with like big strengths and big weaknesses, and those are the kind of armies I like the most, that have very clear drawbacks but also are very good at some things. I think that's very cool, and when those armies are balanced, the game is really fun. So I'm excited about Tau personally. We'll see how they shake out strength-wise, competitively. Feeling excited overall, and I think the Custodes and Orc books are next, so I'm excited to see what's in those. Actually, I'm not excited about Custodes at all, but the Orc book should be cool.
Bro, you're wrong, dude. Get excited, because what if they Dark Angels Custodes? Huh?
That would be the first time in forever. Custodes are always busted on release, but
fair enough.
There is a first time for everything. How you doing,
anyway,
Nick?
How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing well. Like Lucas, I am excited about Tau as well. I'm picking up my Tau army box right after our show today, so that should be exciting.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know this was a thing.
Yeah, they come out today, dude. And then had a blast at Rosehammer, was able to sign up last minute, got some free time that weekend, and well, we'll be talking about that, how much fun it was. It's a good weekend. I've had this past week off, so I've had some time to kind of rest and recuperate and practice a lot of Canoptek Court. That army is very funny. Looking forward to chatting about Rosehammer today and playing some more 40K this weekend. How about you, Tyler? How you doing?
I am also doing fantastic. I am back home in California visiting the folks for the week, which has been lovely. Warhammer is so much fun right now. I am suffering from my favorite ailment, which is, Jesus Christ, there are so many armies I want to be playing right now. I'm loving Necrons. I'm loving Tyranids of multiple flavors. I'm loving Necrons of multiple flavors. There's an itching to go play some GSC right now in the back of my brain. That's how I know that I'm having a good time with it, even if the meta is what it is. Had a really good time getting to see all the boys down at Rosehammer and not pay for a hotel. That's the best kind of tournament.
Yep.
Speaking of which, let's jump right on into it. We're talking about Rosehammer 2, Attack of the Rosehammer Clones. This was March 23rd and 24th, for those of y'all who are tuning in a little bit after the fact. As Nick just said, to kind of timestamp us in the meta as a whole, the Tau Codex comes out today. Well, it comes out in the box set, so it's not real out for a while, but this is pre-Tau Codex, but post-Dark Angels Codex, I think, is the most recent rules change. Other than that, and that's the meta that we find ourselves in. It's going to be a lot of Necrons, and it's going to be a lot of Custodes. So let's get right on into it. Nicholas Olsen Johnson, tell us about the tournament.
All right. So Rosehammer is a 55-person 5-round GT. We were playing with the Leviathan mission pack. I didn't put down which missions we were playing because some of these were custom missions, I believe. For the most part, they were the same, but we'll point out, which ones when we get to them were a little bit off of the GW mission pack. We had GW and I believe NTL fixed terrain layouts.
Yeah, the NTL art, the NTL is a pack of GW and Art of War layouts. So if you call them NTL, the whole thing's NTL using their measurements, GW, Art of War, all that stuff.
We were using NTL measurements even for the GW layouts, I believe. So we had GW layouts 2 and 4, and we had NTL layouts 6 and 8. These weren't set on a day. I believe you could just walk up to the table and get one of these 4 layouts any game, any day.
No, they were. It was 2 and 6 day 1, 4 and 8 day 2, was it not?
I
Yeah,
played
that's right.
on layout 2 day 2, so I have no idea.
Oh no, sorry, no. Layout 2 was day 2. Layout 4 was day 1. Yeah,
No, on
because
day
layout 2 was
one,
the
you
Dawn
can
of War
get
one.
layout NTL layout 8 or GW layout 4.
Yeah,
And then GW
day
layout
2
2
was
and
GW 2.
NTL 6 on day 2.
Yeah.
And that's because of the deployment types that we were playing.
Okay. The pairings were wind path random, and the placings were based off of, kind of what seems to be the most popular one going around right now. Your wins, then your opponent game win percentage, and then battle points being the last tiebreaker. So kind of taking a little bit of that pressure off of scoring maximum points in all of your games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm feeling like there's going to be an episode of this show talking about tiebreakers at some point in the relatively near future. Maybe we'll have a couple of guests on to really break that down. So, because I'm tired of having this mini discussion every time, so we're just going to blow right past that. That's what was going on. Here are some great pictures from the event. Here we have Mr. Olsen Johnson himself.
Yeah. This is my round 1 opponent, Ty. Most of these people are local to Portland, which is super cool. I know a lot of people.
Was this Ty Skeleton, dude?
Yeah, this guy was really cool. I mean, I'll be talking about our game.
Is his last name Skeleton Dude? What?
Something like that, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
This might be mispronouncing it to be funny. But yeah, no, so like a lot of the people here at Portland was super cool. Like a lot of our friends were able to come because it's like such a short drive for them, and like you said, not a commitment with the whole having to like get a hotel room or anything like that, or like miss time away from home. So yeah, a lot of these people, it's like maybe like they'd been also just playing in RTTs mostly. So I know for some people this was their first or their second GT, like their first being Rosehammer last year. So it was really cool seeing a lot of familiar faces and also making a lot of new friends. And yeah, so if you're listening, feel free to come to this part and see some pictures from the event so you can see what it was like playing in a dilapidated mall.
Yeah, absolutely. Also in this photo, you can see the lovely walls of the former Victoria's Secret that we're playing in. There were infinite jokes about that. But yeah, this was held in the Lloyd Center, which is the premier shopping experience in Portland, Oregon. Yeah, so there's that. We've got a photo of myself also from round 1 into the boy John Siebert. Look forward to that recap. That game was awesome. Love John. And you can even see Lucas in the back there doing something or other, probably playing Warhammer.
What a relaxed round 1. Nice and easy,
Oh, God. We'll get there when we get there, but oh, man. And then here we got Lucas playing into not JT. Lovely photo here of Lucas and his wonderful tongue. Got some other photos here of our boy Enrique and the man and the myth, the 3 Wolf Moon legend himself, Colby Hopkins. Everyone's and the mascot of the Rose City Ruffians. That's his other big title there.
True.
Mm-hmm.
They're going at it. Here we got our boy Tanner Herbert on the left, rocking the tourney stash, and I don't even know what kind of tank top he's wearing there. Versus oh God. What's this guy's name? I love this dude. He's so cool. Do you remember this guy's name?
Dan.
Is it Dan? Yeah, Dan. Dan with the Drukari. Love this guy. They had a really good game, if I recall correctly. We're just getting all the homies in here. Here's Leland playing into Cher. Here's our boy Max playing into a guy who I've seen around a bunch. Brad, great. I'm so bad at names, guys. I'm so sorry. I love all the Ordo guys. You're all wonderful.
Oh, I was laughing at Max's face.
Here's
okay. That's also very funny.
There's Jeremiah and Kim playing
we had a lot of team kills at this event. I guess that makes sense if there's 50 people and there's like 15 homies.
Yeah, exactly.
30 of them are friends of ours. Yeah.
Kimothy looks like he's putting the brakes on Jeremiah. They're not very excited about this.
This is the very riveting Eldar mirror. Both of them go, is your movement face over? Fantastic.
Sick. All right, sweet. Let's talk a little bit about the event itself. Got some of our classic tournament review points here. Table height, bathrooms, food and water access, terrain, and the tournament pack, which we may end up talking about more at the end. We'll see about that. Nick, what did you think about Rosehammer 2?
Yeah, I know Rosehammer 2 was a little bit of a strange event. There was some last-minute venue changes that are a bit unfortunate. I know last year people weren't super fond of the Lloyd Center with it being held in, kind of this, more rundown mall in Portland. Like, it's not like, falling apart. Like, we make jokes about that, but it's like the mall's poor. They're renting out, stores that are empty at a cheap price to try to make some money. And the venue isn't like fantastic because of like not like great food options, like not great bathroom access, and so we, like, when we were told like this event was going to be held at a hotel, like it was way more exciting. Like, we'll be renting out one of the hotel like convention rooms. That's awesome. But there was some last minute contract stuff that got, that changed out. So we went back. I do have to give some credit that like the TOs did take, some of the complaints from last year in place and try to make it better. I know one of the big issues was people couldn't find how to get to the tournament venue. So they had like a pretty detailed map and would explain like things to people. I don't think I heard any complaints about people getting lost this year, which was good. Also like getting better bathroom access for everyone, which was good. And giving longer lunch breaks, because I know last year there was like a half-hour lunch break for some reason, which is ridiculous. Should be an hour minimum.
Yeah, I think they were able to negotiate being able to stay later was the big change. I don't think we were able to stay quite as late last year, so they had to cut into lunch. So they made some negotiations, made that happen. No scheduling issues this year. Still started a little bit later than I would normally like a tournament to, but that's a venue restriction. That's when they open the mall, so we can't really
the venue
to be done about that.
The venue's fine. It's rather limiting, as you can look here from what we've been saying. I think what made the event fun was like the fact that we got to see all of our friends there. And if this event really wants to continue to grow and be better than the previous years, probably working in a different venue is the way to do that.
Yeah, I would agree. There's been talk of folding this event into a local board gaming convention that is around the same time of year. That might provide us with a much more pleasant venue. So I would definitely give thumbs up for that. I appreciate that the event is not particularly expensive because the venue is quite cheap. That makes it even more pleasant, but that is what it is. Terrain-wise, we were playing on bird boards. We've spoken about bird boards a whole bunch. He makes really cool looking terrain. Also, Donald showed up with a bunch of his tables that he had made for Cascade, which ended up being a lot of the top tables, some of that more NTL style with the really rigid L's, which love Donald, love his terrain. Those were solid. But yeah, how did you guys feel about the NTL layouts? I didn't play on one at all this weekend, so I don't really have the authority to comment on this. But how were they for y'all?
Just trying to rack my memory. I played on the Dawn of War one, so I think we talked about this in the show with the 2 4x6s kitty corner in the middle. I like that one.
It's so cool,
specifically because for GW style events, it makes Dawn of War playable. The main issue with Dawn of War, it's not a fantastic deployment type, but there isn't a GW terrain format that works well for it. And that sucks a fat one and makes it utterly unplayable in tournaments, in my opinion.
But bro, what about Layout 2?
Layout 2 is not meant for Dawn of War. I know that they built for it, but that it does not work. Just trust me. The NTL Layout 6, however, does actually work for Dawn of War. It makes it very interesting. You can't just like see down through the midfield objectives into your opponent's DZ. Yeah, thank you for pulling it up, Tyler. It's great because like there's ways to hide on the those little 4x6s were not in the right place in the game that I played. But there's lots of places to hide in the midboard. But also, like, once you start stepping up and out onto the objectives, like, you are exposed to many angles, but not all of them. So it's like a nice balance. I really like this layout. I didn't get a chance to play on layout 8. I know there was some complaints that weren't very good at moving on layout 8, but I don't know. I don't mind that at all. I think that's a cool layout.
I know we played it on Hammer and Anvil. We didn't play it on Dawn of War, so I wanted to have it with the appropriate shtick associated.
I played it on Search and Destroy and Crucible Battle.
Sure, I can pull up Crucible. That's right here. What did you think about Layout 8, Nick?
Yeah.
Especially because Crucible is about to be our first round, so this seems like an appropriate time to talk about it.
It's cool. That weird little 4x6 at the front of your DZ is super interesting. It creates these weird situations where you can like kind of hide by not tapping it. The piece in the middle makes it kind of hard to get some stuff out of the DZ. Oh, sorry. I accidentally clicked mute. And then the L in like the bottom is kind of like the standard GWL in a lot of terrain like layouts of theirs where you like get to castle most of your army behind it.
Yeah, I think that there were a lot of complaints of people not being able to like drive right up the center on this layout. I think that's fine. If you want to take 2 turns, you can go down the bottom or you can go up the top. Like,
yeah, it's really easy to get your tanks trapped in this DZ because you have to like deploy them right on the line, and like some of them aren't even fast enough to clear that 4x6. So you have to advance.
But like if you want to go that way, you can just go down the bottom and take 2 turns to do
There's
it.
also
like, it's not
a big enough gap on the top that you should be able. You can drive something up that way to threaten the top objective.
Yeah, I think it was just like you couldn't fit like a Land Raider through that.
You couldn't put a Land Raider through the middle because there's a 4x6 in the way. Oh, bummer.
Yeah, bummer, dude. You're playing a Land Raider.
It was funny. Tanner and I were testing these layouts a lot the week before because we wanted to get used to them because we'd never seen them, and he especially he's like being able to move 2 Land Raiders on the board is going to be important. And both of these boards, he was like, "Oh my god, I have to deploy a Land Raider on the line and roll a 3 up to be able to leave. Like, this is crazy." So yeah,
cool.
It was pretty funny.
All right,
but they're good. They're good layouts. Their sight lines are, you know, at first it looks a little open, but like there's definitely some thought into blocking line of sight, which is cool.
Yeah, I think there's also a lot more binary. Like either like this lane exists and this lane doesn't. Whereas a lot of the GW boards are like, there's kind of a lane here if you're kind of the wrong size or whatnot. And those were not built with particular thought to model dimension. So I like the NTL layouts a lot in general. I think that is one of the parts of the NTL that gets a big thumbs up from me. We haven't played them enough to really have a super nuanced opinion on them, but I think they're good. Cool. Let's jump into some lists before we get into round 1. Starting up with our boy Lucas and his favorite green skins. Talk about the orcs, Lucas. What do we got going on?
So yeah, this is my Stinky Legion. I've talked on the show previously about starting to learn Death Guard. So this is one of the iterations I've been playing with recently. It's got 3 Biologus Putrefiers. One of them has got -2 to charge. 2 Foul Blight Spawn. We've got Tethys himself, the 3rd part of the Mortal Wound Death Guard package. 2 squads of 10 Plague Marines with 5 heavy melee, 3 or 1 plasma, 0 or 2 melta, respectively. 2 flamers and a blight launcher. 2 squads of 5 Plague Marines with 3 heavy melee, 2 plasma and a bubotic. I've been thinking about changing that bubotic to a flamer. Still a little uncertain about that. 3 rhinos, 10 cultists, 2 predator destructors. These are the +1 AP against infantry tanks. 3 bloat drones with double flamers. 4 squads of 3 nurglings and a carnivore. So this is a little less heavy on the big holes and a little bit heavier on the amount of stuff. Death Guard, which is kind of like the dichotomy you have to grapple with when you're playing Death Guard. Do you go for quality or do you go for quantity? This is a little bit more quantity. So yeah, had a lot of fun. 30 Plague Marines, 3 drones, 2 Preds, and a carnivore. It was a good time.
Very cool. What's the deal with the Plague Marine asymmetry here? I really don't want to get mired in a discussion about their war gear, but I have to ask because it's...
So I wanted to try Meltas. Most Death Guard players I talk to rave and rant about the Meltas constantly. I don't really see it, and after playing with them for a little while, they only really get saucy once they're within Melta range, which is 6 inches, and it's already a very awkward unit, so I was not very impressed by the Melta, frankly. I feel like the volume of plasma with lethal hits is better, and so I've pivoted now back to lots of plasma. For the 5-mans, I valued the bubotic weapon over the flamer. Now I'm kind of unsure because you get proportionally like more melee weapons in a 5-man than a 10-man, so I figure the 1 flamer probably isn't going to be that big of a deal. Let's put an extra melee weapon in there so that if I need them to go clear out some small little unit, they can do that pretty decently. Turns out Plague Marines are a shooting unit, so having a flamer is probably better than new bubotic, especially because the flamer guy still has a knife, which is like 1 less attack and 2 less AP, but otherwise it's like the same thing. So
fair enough. Alrighty. Up next, I want to talk a little bit about my Hypercrypt. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you've heard this list before. It is identical to what I took to Rosehammer. This is Rosehammer. Identical to what I took to Cascade. I have a bunch of cool ideas about ways to iterate Necrons, but a 2-week turnover was not enough time to get models ready for any major list changes. I wasn't even able to get my own monolith ready. You can see it pictured here, gray. It is now on the painting table in progress. Big shout out to Nick for lending me his for this event as it is painted. But yeah, the list, just to run through it again, we're playing Hypercrypt. We got 2 Chronomancers, one of which has Dimensional Overseer, Nightbringer, Void Dragon, Transcendent, so 3 Catans, and Xeris. We got a Plasmancer with Arisen Tyrant for those full rerolls to hit, 2 Bricks of 20 Warriors with Reapers, 3 Scarabs, 2 Solo Locusts, and the Monolith himself with, of course, the Death Rays. At the end of Cascade, I felt like this was a phenomenal list. At the end of Rosehammer, I still feel like this is a phenomenal list. I have tons of other things that I'm excited about trying, but this seems like a local minimum in terms of optimization. I don't have any changes that I really want to make here. I have other ideas that I want to try, but I don't think this list needs any tweaking at this point in time. And then our boy Nikolai, who will not, in fact, be playing a duplicate army with me this time. He's going in an entirely different direction. Nick, give us a little bit about the story behind your Thousand Sons list. Let's go.
Yeah. So I was didn't know if I was going to be able to make it to Rosehammer or not, but the weekend opened up for me. So signed up rather last minute. Wanted to play something a little bit different after winning Cascade with Hypercrypt. Hypercrypt's really cool. Hypercrypt's really fun. But I was hanging out with Tanner a lot, and he was basically telling me, he was basically making fun of me. He was like, dude, you can't try to win with the same list again. That'd be a bit cringe. And I mean, he's mostly just like messing with me. But I did want to try some new stuff. Like you were saying earlier, the meta is really opened up now compared to in the past. So there's a lot of armies that look very interesting. Like particular Grey Knight seemed really interesting to me, which is I guess just Hypercrypt with a different flavor. Canoptek Court seemed really interesting to me. Unfortunately wasn't really able to get the models for that ready in time because it's very different than the Hypercrypt list. Requires completely different stuff. And so Tanner just suggested, why don't I take Thousand Sons? Because he has a Thousand Sons army sitting on the shelf. He knows that I enjoy playing them. I've played them a lot. I played them a lot in practice games in 9th edition, but never took them to a tournament. And got kind of messed around with them a little bit in 10th edition right before they got nerfed, and then kind of didn't really want to play them because they got nerfed. But yeah, so he convinced me to play them, and that's why I landed on Thousand Sons. They seemed like a very interesting, dynamic army to figure out and push around and see what I could do with them. So the list I went with is kind of a very standard, I think probably first introduction to Thousand Sons lists. Like it doesn't have a lot of like crazy tricks compared to some of the more like trash heavy lists, and it has like a little bit of like ways to help you out if you make errors, which is good for starting this army the first time because there's a lot of just weird sequencing stuff in it. So of course it's got Magnus the Red as your warlord because he's pretty mandatory in Thousand Sons. He's insane. Got Ironman on Disc of Tzeentch. We've got an Exalted Sorcerer on foot with the Umberlific Crystal. That's the once per game teleport. Caught 2 Exalted Sorcerers on Disc of Tzeentch. Those are the guys that zip around and can slow people down. I've got an Infernal Master with the Arcane Vortex, otherwise known as the Super Flamer guy. Thousand Sons Sorcerer on foot with Lord of Forbidden Lore. This is the guy that gives his unit baby lone op, so can't get shot outside of 18. And Lord of Forbidden Lore allows you to repeat rituals with this character. 4 squads of 5 rubrics to go with all of the foot characters, and 1 goes with Ahriman. 2 of them had Soul Reapers. I gave Soul Reapers to the Infernal Master and Sorcerer squad, and then I gave all Flamers to Ahriman and the Foot Exalted Sorcerer. And then 2 Megalith Vortex Beasts. These are kind of just the chunky, not hard to make mistakes with them, help your army out, like good training wheels. I wouldn't recommend them on denser boards, but since GW and NTL layouts are a little bit more open, it's pretty easy to move them around. And then 2 squads of 3 Zangor and Lighten. These are the goats on discs with bows, and they're just my trash that help me out with scoring. So, yeah.
Sweet. Let's get right into it. Nick here showing off some of his sick cards. You want to talk about these a little bit?
Yeah, so a big thing with Thousand Sons that people like to talk about is how much people just cheat with them on stream, which actually does happen a ridiculous amount of times. There's a lot of like weird stuff in their army that's like, this happens at the end of this phase, this happens at the start of this phase, this requires line of sight, this doesn't. This happens, during the phase. And so I made a lot of these reminder cards to help remind me, because I only got to play like 2 practice games before this tournament, and also to like show my opponent, like, hey dude, I want you to understand all this weird stuff, so it doesn't look like I'm just like waving my hands over here and making shit up. And it actually helped out a lot. My opponents were able to like look at them and be like, I know exactly what's happening. And then even a few times I was like, God, I don't remember like what phase this happens. Oh, during the command phase. Perfect. So this was just basically copying, word for word from the index and then making cards for them. So had a ton of fun with them.
Sweet. Let's move on into round 1. We are playing Purge the Foe, which is why I'm not playing Nids this weekend, Chilling Reign, and Crucible of Battle. Kind of a bummer to burn Crucible on Purge, but that is what it is. And round 1, Lucas is playing into our boys, the Tyranids. I know a thing or two about bugs, or so I've been told, so I'm going to run through this list real quick. This is Invasion Fleet, I imagine, given that it has Invasion Fleet enhancements. And holy shit, this list is cool. Okay, rock on, dude. We got a Neuro Tyrant with Alien Cunning. That's the redeploys. We got a Winged Hive Tyrant with Adaptive Biology, so that's the Feel No Pain. Oh, man, I don't even remember my enhancement names correctly. Let me pull this up. Wow, that's embarrassing.
Yes, it's the Feel No Pain.
Invasion Fleet enhancements. Yeah. Alien Cunning is the redeploy. Adaptive Biology is the Feel No Pain. Perfectly Adapted is the reroll 1-hit wound, damage, advance, charge, or saving throw per turn. And that's on a second Winged Hive Tyrant. This man is playing double Flyrant. He's got 2 squads of 10 Horny Rats, my favorite data sheet in the Nids book right now. 3 squads of 6 Raveners. So the man is uppy-downying all over you or face, and he has got a lot of attacks. A single unit of 3 Ripper Swarms, is that right?
No, 3 squads of 1.
Okay, 3 single Ripper Swarms. That makes more sense. Pair of Screamer Killers, now that they've gotten their points dropped, to do a little bit of battle shocking. 2 squads of 3 Warriors with ranged weapons, kind of just holding down the fort a little bit. T-Fex with what I assume is an acid spray. And 2 squads of 3 Venomthropes. Interesting decision. How'd this game go, Lucas?
That Tyrannofex actually has a Rupture Cannon.
Let's fucking go! King
It did kill 1 car. It was very funny.
Let's go!
So, yeah, this was definitely... my opponent was really nice this round, but it was certainly not the most interesting round. He's got, 80% infantry with low saves, and I am the moderate AP anti-infantry army. So, like, he tried to charge into me, and I absolutely melted him and basically tabled him in 3 turns. So, I didn't remember to take pictures of all my games this event, but this one I did. Yeah, you can see like as soon as he kind of like comes into the middle area, and that's just like Flamer Central, and I had my 2 10-mans positioned at the lower right corner there, and they just like completely, or lower left corner, they just like melted Raveners all day, and he was tabled by at the end of turn 3. So yeah, definitely doing the Death Guard thing here. Purge the Foe was not kind to him either, because it was really hard. He had to like, the tough choice of, do I take Exploding Hit so I can kill your Plague Marines faster, or do I take Lethal so I can kill the cars? And the thing is, like, I know that decision pre-game, so I can just play more aggressively with the one that he didn't, take the bonus against. So he took Lethals here, which I think is probably the right call, because my army is a lot more holes than infantry, and also the infantry are inherently a little bit squishier. But I just like threw the Plague Marines at him then, and it took him several turns to cut through them all. And in the meanwhile, they were just like thwacking everything in his army. So yeah. Certainly not the most interesting game, but definitely a fun one. Tom was a great opponent and took the shellacking in style. So good game to him, and showcased the anti-infantry prowess of the Death Guard.
Hell yeah, man. As we alluded to earlier, time to run on into my walk in the park round 1. Get to run into our boy John Siebert. Love this guy. John is the man who, if you have been following us for a while, in our first episode talking about the Gongai event out in Forest Grove, he was playing the Votun where I got too cute with my gargoyles and just ran me over. As a result, did not look good for the swarm, so I am back and ready for some revenge. Nick, you want to walk us through Mr. Siebert's Votun army?
Yeah. He's got 3 Einhir champions, no enhancements.
Oh, one of them gets back up, I think.
He didn't have a praising glare or anything.
Oh, yeah, he did have the point at an objective. Sorry,
That's
I
okay.
don't know how to read.
Okay, so 3 on here champions. 1 with a praising glare. That's appointed objectives for judgment. 1 maybe stands back up.
Yes,
2
right. He's got a
of
praising
10.
glare and Wayfarer's Grace. Just to double check the list.
2 squads of 10 Hearthkin. 2 Sagittars. I think he didn't equip him with the scam cannons. I think he put the missiles on them this time.
That is correct.
Which makes sense if you're only running 2, I suppose. They can like cut angles a little bit better with the longer range, and also a little more consistent, so they can actually maybe do something. 2 squads of 3 Thunderkin with Grav. 2 squads of 5 Zerks. 1 squad as Mauls. 1 squad as Axes. And then he's got his 2 squads of 5 Hearthguard with Volkite and Plasma inside of the forts, which he has 2 of. And do both of them have the rail cannons?
Yes, sir.
Wild, dude. And then 2 squads of 3 bikes. This
Holy
is wildly
shit! Wait,
different from what you played.
two
Gone
rail
guy.
cannon forts.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
This man had every intention of being tonight's biggest winner. And
he didn't run the scam cannons, dude.
yeah, he doesn't need him. He's gonna sustain. Is it sus
Did
2?
he ever
The
sustain to the
stratagem.
fort?
He did. He did not roll the 6. He rolled a 5, but we
Oh.
were both really hoping for it.
Well, so that's fine.
Yeah. Cool. So I will comment early on. There was one thing that he did a little bit differently than you may have expected. He does not put 5 Hearthguard in each fort. He puts 5 Hearthguard in one fort with a champ, and then the other 5 Hearthguard with a champ ingress, and then the other fort is a party bus with both squads of Zerks in it.
Oh yeah, he did this in the Mia Gun guy. Okay.
Yeah, he's got his little party bus there, which is pretty sick. This was not what I was looking for round 1, but fortunately, it's a little bit more of a favorable matchup than it was with the bugs. Having played into Votun a bunch now, thank you, Nick. I feel like if you have more than 4 serious threats, there's a pretty reliable play pattern into them where you figure out what they marked, and whatever they didn't mark, you jam down their throats, because Votun are really lacking in killing power into things that are not tokened. And in addition to that, they are a very immobile army, right? They need all these transports and bike uppy downies to get around. So those were kind of the 2 weak points that I tried to press Hassan in this matchup. He put his 4 tokens on both squads of warriors, the Void Dragon, because he got bad touched by a Void Dragon somewhat recently, I think, and the Monolith. Unfortunately, what is not on that list, Nick?
The Nightbringer.
Yes, sir. So we are leading with Nightbringer today, and also the Transcendent to some extent. I think we talked about this a bunch. I think if you play that game, if you're a Necron player going into a Hypercrypt list that looks anything like mine, forget the Warriors. Just mark all 3 Catan and the Monolith and call it a day. Catan are so damn hard to kill. And they also, oh my gosh, they were so good at not quite killing things. I kept ending up in a situation where a Catan would almost kill something, and then like a single Locust would pick up the spare, or the Monolith, who was already double token, would pick up the spare. So the token manipulation here was big, but the bigger thing is the move blocks. This is not an army that can handle the Warriors with the Chronomancer. Yeah. I talked a lot in the last episode about how much I love this double Chronomancer tech so that I can always sub in and not use the Plasmaster squad if I didn't want to. I didn't do it in this game, and I regret it. Votun is absolutely a matchup where that is the right call, as is anyone who is a 2-up AOC army. I think it's probably the right call into Grey Knights. It's definitely the right call into Votun. The Warriors just don't do anything to a 2-up AOC, particularly if they can get cover or pop smoke or go to ground, which most of the things in those armies can. The forts cannot, which is a thing that I tried to exploit but never really got a chance to. But yeah, we can break it down a little bit here. I ended up going first here, which was great. And the mission is very favorable to me because I'm actually able to force Holdmores, and also I have way fewer trash units than him. So we flung a bunch of Catan and Xeris up onto the top left, which is my favorite opening maneuver. Played around on the middle, shot a bunch of units down. I pulled in play right out of Nick's book into me. I was only able to get the Void Dragon onto the objective up there. So he wasn't going to be able. So he's not able to take with the Sagittarius. He has to get the guys out as well, and he runs his guys over. I got Xeris as well, so I have 7 OC. That's what it is. So he runs the guys over, And I'm like, oh, I've seen this play before. I know what to do. I overwatch with the Void Dragon, baby. Because that man may only have D6 plus 4 shots into a 5-man unit, but he is still sus 2, and he managed to kill 2 of the 5 Hearthguard. So suddenly he's only got 6 OC to my 7. So he has to commit the tank as well if he's actually going to deny me the primary, which Votan are an army where you want to limit their unit count as early as possible. His secondaries were tempting target, deploy, teleport homers, and he was going to go get both of those with that car, and suddenly having to commit another resource into the center to avoid that worked out really well for me. I just got to start picking up kills, move blocking really well here. The forts are very easy to move block. You can figure out where they're going pretty well. Also, even the rail cannons are they're 30-inch range, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, so that's a very easy range to play around. We box him in. There was a really tragic moment where this happens every time I play into Votan, and with anything that deep strikes, Gene Stealers, Necrons, Gargoyles, whatever, where they're like, all right, I'm running out of stuff, and something else needs to happen. In this case, he drew Investigate Signal. I need to have my Hearthguard run off the home field objective and sticky it and hope that's enough. It never goes well, but they always have to do it and I was like, bro, you know that the moment you walk off that objective, I'm drawing capture enemy outpost, right? You know that's happening. And he's like, yeah, it's going to happen, but like, I got to do the thing. And he runs into the corner, Investigate Signal, and then I top deck capture. So the Transcendent dropped down onto his home field, picked up a bunch of points for that. So that was a bummer. He then committed his whole army to killing the Transcendent, who had no tokens. He picks up 1 token from the Appraising Glare, but that's not enough. And just the Transcendent managed to tank it all, survive on like 1 or 2 wounds, and then punch its way out slowly but surely. Or no, I think it fell back. The only other thing that happened here that I think was a clever learning moment was he had both of his bike units show up right next to each other in that sort of back right corner in order to try to down the Transcendent. And in doing so, ignored the Locust Destroyer that was sort of behind this ruin in his home field. Because he had to put all the shots in the Transcendent. That Locust Destroyer ran right up and tagged both squads of bikes at once. Votan bikes cannot punch their way out of melee. So they're stuck there, and they can't leave the table if they're in combat. One of them could fall back, shoot, and charge, but he wanted to use that elsewhere anyway, like massive value. Tag the bikes. Always tag the bikes. Fred Fortman asks, I assume that's Fred Fortman, or there's some other F. Fortman, asks, how do you take such good top-down pictures? I use the ultra-wide camera lens on my Note 20 Ultra. I know a lot of phones have ultra-wides these days. It is definitely the best way to get photos like this that don't involve you being Lucas tall. I am not a short man, I don't think, but I'm not one of these giants who play 40K so much. So that's my recommendation when I get these photos. Use the widest angle lens that your phone camera has to offer. But yeah, overall, really great game. Into John here, I was able to max all my points here, especially on the primary side, right? He's getting 8s and a 4. I'm getting 12s and a 16 because I was generally able to get the kill more, even if he was able to keep me from getting the hold more. The primary in this mission racks up real quick. Yeah, final score ends up being 100 to... Let me get rid of the stat check logo for a sec so I can see what it is. 167. Great game, John. But the Crypt manages to pull it out. Sweet. Meanwhile, our boy Thickless Nicholas going into the Vanguard Space Marines. Different take on the John Lennon list here. Lucas, you've played this army. You want to run us through the Vanguard list?
Sure. So next round, one opponent is playing Space Marines Vanguard, Ultramarine Raven Guard, Ultra Guard Raven Marines. We've got the Harm Assist with the Blade Driven Deep. This is the Infiltrate Lethal Hitsman. We've got Marnius Calgar, Earl of Ventress, very standard. 2 squads of 5 Heavy Intercessors. This is an interesting unit. Probably not worth the points, but like
sleeper unit, cheap, dude. I think Guinness is talking about these guys all the time.
Pretty cheap for the resilience, in all honesty. And I think they're OC2 as well, because they're like troops or whatever. 1 squad of 6 Dev Sense with the normal loadout, company heroes, 1 squad of 6 Eradicators. Eradicators over aggressors, baby! I love the Eradicators with well, they're especially messed up with Fire Discipline, but obviously you can't have that in Vanguard. But yeah, great unit. We've got 2 Lancers, 2 squads of 3 Plasma Inceptors, 2 squads of 5 Scouts, Scout Enthusiast, let's go, and a Calidus Assassin. So a very cool Vanguard list with some interesting tech and lethal Lancers. How'd this go, Nick?
Yeah, so this game was interesting. Bit of a tough one to play for like a newer Thousand Suns game, just because of how lethal this army can be, like, wherever it wants to be. I was very aware of these Centurion Devastators that were given Deep Strike by Euro Ventress at the beginning of the game. He did start them in reserves. I guess he didn't want to like alpha me. The board we were playing on, it was layout 8, so fairly defensive. I think he saw like where we could deploy stuff and realized he couldn't really threaten anything with them turn 1, and he was really worried about me like doing like a going second and like double moving over and twist of fating after I explained how I could turn off his Centurion's armor save. And he's like, I don't want to risk that. I don't really know what your army can do. I'm just putting him off the board, and we're going to bring him in turn 2. The Plasceptors as well are also terrifying because they are 3-inch deep strike and they will shred rubrics. So that's something I'm aware of. And then this Marnius Apothecary Biologist Eradicator squad that's deployed behind the midfield L is also very scary. The good thing about this mission, since it's being purged the foe, his ability to like hold space out there early game doesn't matter so much, because all I need to do is make sure he never gets hold more. So like if he's holding like 2, right, and the middle, all I need to do is hold my safe one and maybe contest the middle. Sometimes easier said than done, but the idea behind this was like maybe I can use mutas to draw out like an overcommitment from him and then pounce on that overcommitment, kill it with like rubrics behind this wall, kill it with Magnus, etc., etc. Luckily on this mission, I continued my streak of going second on Purge the Foe, so lol, free 8 points. This mission's kind of silly for that, but yeah. If you want to set over the next slide. So this game fairly close, as you can see. I do end up maxing primary, but he ends up getting better secondaries than me. He's like got control of the board for the most part early game, so I'm not really able to go out there and get things like I draw Engage turn 1, I draw Assassination turn 2, right? I draw Tempting turn 3, and he's like, I'll tempt you with this top objective, and I'm like, I'm not going over there. So this kind of began a bit of a learning moment of me realizing like, okay, Thousand Suns can't, they're different than other armies I played. Like Hypercrypt, it was like, okay, I've drawn my objectives, let's build my like plan around doing my objectives and removing scary pieces from the board. Thousand Suns, it's like, okay, what do I have to commit to do this objective? Oh, like 200 points of rubric, 10 cabal, and I kill nothing over there and I die in return? That's terrible trade. We're not doing that. That's becoming a CP to kill you next turn. We're going to go do this objective we can do for free, and we're going to kill you. So there was a little bit of that early where I kind of did try to go out of my way trying to accomplish these secondaries. I lost my mutas by like turn 2. I think I lost my goats by like turn 3, and I realized like, okay, I'm kind of like overextending a bit too much to get secondaries for not a lot of value. And so the end of the game was me just like throwing rubrics to Magnus at him and like killing everything around me. Yeah, it was super cool. There was this moment where I twisted fated his Centurions with Magnus, and I was like, okay, full hit and wound rerolls, and neither of us knew if I'd one-shot the unit, and I one-shot the unit, and we were both like, holy cow, this is crazy. So kind of also began this journey of like, yeah, Magnus damage bit cracked into the right targets. So yeah, this was a tie, the picture that you saw of us earlier, or heard about us earlier. This was his first GT, but he's been playing in a lot of RTTs. And like he certainly knew his shit. I believe he ended a 3-2 at this tournament. I ran into him at the Ordo Teams night last week, so super cool catching up with him. And I think he'll be certainly a contender to watch out for at tournaments around here in the future. So yeah, great game to tie.
Rock and roll, man. Sweet. Heading on into round 2, we are playing Supply Drop, Chilling Rain, Search and Destroy. I have lamented Search and Destroy Supply Drop as a bad combination in the past, but it is a GW recommendation, so you're going to see it at events. Lucas here gets to run into Grey Knights. That's a poppin' little army there, very much trendy these days among the hip, cool circles. Nick, you've been playing around with Grey Knights a little bit. You want to run us through this Grey Knight list?
Yeah, so this Grey Knight has a Grandmaster on foot with the Sigil Exigence. The Grandmaster is cool because he gives his unit ignore all modifiers, and the Sigil is the once per game when you're shot, you can immediately just like redeploy as if you were deep striking. And then your opponent's allowed to, redeclare shots if they have another legal target. But it's super annoying because this guy hangs out with either a squad of Terminators or a squad of Paladins, so his whole squad gets to relocate with him, which is a terrifying prospect. There's a Grandmaster and a Nemesis Dread Knight. These are the guys that do not advance in charge, but they do like once per battle round can like reroll hits, wounds, and damage into like monsters and vehicles. Drago, you know him, you love him. He's got the once per game +3 to charge when coming out of Deep Strike, or the like weird, Grey Knight version of hyperphasing. We got 10 Terminators. These guys are really cool because they're OC2, OC3 with a banner. They get lethal hits on the charge, quite tanky. They got an Apothecary to bring a guy back every turn. You got 5 Strikes. The Strikes are their just basic infantry that sticky objectives. You got 10 Paladins. These guys have the new Transhuman ability, so they're kind of like, the Hearthguard, I guess, of the Grey Knights. They have a little bit more guns than the Terminators, but other than that, they have only OC1, so they're a little bit worse at holding objectives, and I don't think they get the lethal hits, so they punch a little bit worse. And then you got 3 Nemesis Dread Knights. These are the hot commodity right now. These guys have advance and fallback shoot and charge, and when Grey Knights advance, anything with the Deep Strike keyword auto advances 6 with fly. So these guys are zooming around 14, bonking you and shooting you. And they've got quite a bit of gun. Their Psycan ignores cover now. Yeah, Grey Knight's super cool. Relatively low model count army. Tell us how this went, Lucas.
Yeah, this is a very interesting matchup because both of us are doing like wildly different things. There's a couple things in Daniel's list here that are going to be a unique problem for Death Guard. The first of which is ignore modifiers. Death Guard is one of the armies, if you bring Mortarion, that has a lot of ignores modifiers themselves, but they're also very punished when the opponent brings it. And that's because that -1 toughness and -1 armor save that the Death Guard are trying to bring to bear all the time is a modifier. So, being able to ignore that is really, really powerful and makes the one squad that's joined to that Grandmaster just basically immune to the Flamers because, the Death Guard player lines up all their Flamers, you AOC it, all of a sudden they're taking 2-ups, and you kill like 1 Paladin, and then it's over for you because they're like 5 inches away from you. So that's scary. The good news is his army isn't fantastic at dealing damage to me. He's got some side cannons and NDKs, but hopefully using angles, I can force him toward me. And then 1 NDK shouldn't kill a hull, and then I can respond because one of the NDKs will teleport away, and then the other one I'll still just be able to shoot. So this game was like a slow crawl of, I get him to expose 2 NDKs to kill a hull. One of them teleports away when I counter expose, and then I bash the other one. Every turn it was like 1 NDK was dying, 1 was getting away. In fact, it was the same guy who got away every single time. So like he teleported to my backfield turn 1, almost killed a Predator, missed the way, then ingressed immediately, came up, killed a Rhino, missed away, and then on turn 4 came down, shot some angle at 24 inches, and then in the last turn again teleported to my backfield to where he started, and then finally died. So his brothers are all getting whacked with the hammer one at a time as he was just doing whatever he wanted, which is pretty cool. So the Dread Knights are pretty cool. Unlike in 9th edition, Grey Knights are an army that is allergic to mortal wounds and devastating wounds because they have no defense against that. So usually what would happen would be my shooting phase would start like with 7 mortals or more, honestly. It's like an average of 9 mortals. So I like drop 8 or 9 mortals on a Dread Knight, and then the first Predator would shoot and just knock it the fuck out. So that was always pretty funny. He was kind of just like his tanks were melting, and he wasn't doing too much damage back to me. Unfortunately, this is supply drop on Search and Destroy, and he is a much more mobile army than me, and the objectives were disappearing straight toward him. So I should have probably tried to push his flank a little faster. I didn't realize how little damage he would do to me. It really is just those incinerators and the ignore mod squad killing Plague Breeds and melee. They're very inefficient trades for me. Everything else is fine. So I pushed a little bit too slowly, and I don't have a picture for this one, unfortunately, but should have put the scorecard in the middle. But as you can see, I was kind of calculating it up. It ended up being a very close 3-point loss for me, and the 8 and 15 I'd kind of accounted for at the end, but I got a little bit jumbled up because I was like trying to go stop his primary, but giving it a kind of half-assed attempt. And then once I was committed, he was able to start killing a couple of my characters, which pushed him over the edge in terms of points. So that was pretty unfortunate. But yeah, a really fun game overall. It was kind of cool to see, like I was saying, the 2 armies doing wildly different things. Death Guard just being kind of like slow up close damage, and then Grey Knights just teleporting, do whatever they want to, and like a couple of Terminator bricks being tanky. Yeah, it was a really fun game overall.
What do you think about his choice to take Bring It Down Assassinate here? That seems pretty greedy, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
We had some thoughts about it. We actually got to the point where we had deployed our armies, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna take Bring It Down Assassinate." I'm like, "All right, dude, but like, it's not gonna change anything I'm doing, but like, fair enough." It is interesting. On the one hand, it doesn't give him CP to do the things he wants to. Grey Knights are still a CP hungry army, even after the switch to NDKs. So he's going to have a lot less CP to play with. But on the other hand, he has to kind of kill some of my units to have a shot in the game. I don't think there's a world in which he doesn't get 20 Bring It Down. And then for Assassinate, yeah, he has to cut through the Plague Brains. It takes a little while, but like he should probably kill at least 2 or 3. So I don't think it's the worst decision in the world, especially because like this is not a chaff heavy list. He's got 1 unit of strikes and everything else wants to be shooting or acting basically every turn. So you don't really have the time for actions. Being wholly in quarters for things like engage is a little bit tough. Area denial definitely is like go to the middle and then die there.
Area denial is not a fixed secondary.
I'm talking if you took tactical.
Oh, if you took tactical. Gotcha.
It's not a list that's very good at doing tactical because there's like 6 units and one of them is a throwaway unit. So I'm sure you can still do it, but like eventually you start running out of stuff to actually accomplish those cards, you know?
Yeah, I was wondering about behind.
That seems a little bit harder on the.
It is supply drop. You're right about that. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, especially because you have all these useless Nurgling units that, like, what are you going to do with them other than zone them all out? But, like, he's got 3-inch deep strike. Or he's just got, Drago's crazy charges.
We had an interesting opening to the game where obviously Grey Knights are an army that can 3-inch on you. So I wanted to hold my objectives as inexpensively as possible. I went first, so I scout moved my cultists onto the middle objective, stickying it. And then I drove my 5-man rhino onto my natural expansion in the top left, sticking that one next turn because I covered the chip and he couldn't take it away from me. And then next turn I drove all my stuff off of them and just dropped 2 Nurglings on the tips. And
Let's
was like,
go!
C0 holding the objective. Let's go!
That's a sick play, dude. Did he? What do you do about Drago though? Doesn't he just like take one of those, or is it just exposing enough that you don't care?
Drago can come and kill 3 Nurglings to deny 5 points. That's fine with me.
Fair enough, dude. Light him up. That's awesome. Great stuff, man. Bummer that this didn't work out for you, but Daniel had a hell of a tournament run. So props to him for making it happen, even with such a dud secondary and Assassinate here.
Yeah, and I know he had a ton of fun in your game. He came over after. He's like, "Oh my god, that was freaking exhausting round 2. Holy cow!"
Yeah, Daniel is definitely one of the up and comers in our scene here. I think once you get a little more, he's not
Florida, dude. Yeah.
Well, why is he?
He's friends with Kyle Sears, who's one of the
other. Like I've seen him around at multiple events. Like, is he going to school here or something?
No, he just comes to visit Kyle and then play 40K with him.
What? He flew in from Florida for this event?
Yeah. Yeah. The 4th people might know him. He said I think the last GT he played in before this, he lost to Tim Binney on top table or something.
Hell yeah. Rock and roll, Tim. Well, whatever the case, this kid, once he gets a little more hair on his chest, is going to be a force to be reckoned with. He seems to really know what he's doing.
He's older than you, dude.
Anyway, moving on to my round 2 here. I'm playing into our boy Warwick. I love Warwick. He's one of the absolute chief ambassadors of our community. He is the man doing a lot of the organizing behind our team nights that we've been talking about here. Absolute stalwart pillar of the Portland community and an absolute pleasure to be around and play Warhammer with. He is playing, of course, the most boring army ever with some Custodes here. Lucas, I know you hate Custodes, so I'm going to make you read this list.
All right. We've got 3 Blade Champs, 1 with Careless Hunter. We've got Trajan. We've got 5 Custodian Guard, 4 Prosecutors, 2 Caliduses, and 3 squads of 5 Wardens. Wait, so... it's no Draxus. Okay, that's where...
no agents at all. No Draxus, no Calidus. Fuck that noise. I got 4 Prosecutors and a dream, baby. Sweet. So this is the second tournament in a row of playing Custodes round 2. And God, I hate Wardens. And this is again on supply drop. Warwick basically said, I'm going to dogpile the middle. We'll see what happens, but I'm taking the middle, and you're not taking it back from me. And I was like, all right, man, bet. Let's see where the objectives are going. And sure enough, my natural expansion disappears first, then his, and the middle stay until the end. So we'll see what we can do about that. He's also got the double Caladius, which, if you remember from that last from that Custodes game at Cascade, can be a really big problem for this list because they melt Catan just so quickly. Fortunately, they're kind of clunky to move around, and he was very concerned about getting Monolith turn 1, which, I mean, fair enough. Though, as a reminder for everyone, the Monolith is 24-inch range. You can usually play around that better than you can play around its line of sight for deployment. Don't be so scared of it. But, yeah, so he was able to set stuff up. I responded by not even taking his center objective. I just physically couldn't. Like, if I put every single warrior on it, I would probably have denied him 5 points, but, like, that's not real, so we're going to ring stuff instead. He jammed all his dudes into the middle. We shot them until they died. It's kind of what happened. The first priority is to kill the Custodes, because once the Caladii go down, the Catan are kind of free. Also, Trajan Squad needs to go down. Fortunately, I was able to, sorry about the Monolith, into his back corner and murder Trajan's units. Trajan himself squeaked out, ran out forward, and in the following turn got shot by a Monolith, dropped to 1 wound. And then the Plasmancer Warrior Squad is just sitting there staring at him like, you wanna move, funny man? We got AP2. Lethal. Come and get some. And he eventually did decide to move him. Warwick went for an interesting strategy on this one, where he took Assassinate and Deploy Teleport Homers as secondaries, which I think is like a pretty reasonable decision. Like, I wasn't impressed by it conceptually. I was like, oh, that'll be easy. But he got a 12 on Assassinate, and the Catan definitely could have died a little harder than they ended up dying. And, you know, a solid 14 on Homer. I did table him top of 5, so that, you know, prevented him from scoring on turn 5. But yeah, overall, a solid performance by Warwick here. A lot of fun. I'm just like getting this Custodes matchup down to a science at this point, and kind of jamming everything forward is not really the way to deal with it. You can see here, I think this is a really good example. This is what I was talking about in turn 2 of using the warriors where the move block matters more than the points. Because the way that I've totally penned him in here, there's no way he can get to my Transcendent on my home field. These warriors are all very carefully lined up so that Caladius cannot get onto the objective without advancing. And if he advances the Caladius, it still isn't enough OC to take the objective from the Catan, I don't think. Or are they OC 4? What's the OC on a Caladius? I don't even know. Caladius.
I think it
is 4. So he could possibly have advanced it far enough to get on, though he would have needed a reasonable advance number. And even then the Caladius isn't shooting. I don't care. And he can't get up to the top left objective either. All he's got is his ingressing squad, and this table has been very carefully zoned. There's a Locust behind the ruin there on the left, so there's nowhere for him to ingress anywhere except for into his own backfield, basically. So like those are the kind of maneuvers that really hamper Custodes. If you just control where they get to stand, they don't have a lot of fly. They don't have a lot of mobility outside of Ceaseless Hunter or just Blade Champs in general, but also Blade Champ squads don't hit that hard. So is what it is. Bait out the 4 up, feel no pains, precision out the characters where possible to take away the -1 to wound, and like they die like everybody else. Just don't get charged by Trajan squad. Sweet. Meanwhile, it is Nick's turn now to go into the Grey Knights on round 2, but a very different sort of Grey Knight list here. Actually, no, it's almost exactly the same. Some slight differences. Lucas, you want to run us through this battle of sorcerers? What do we got going on for the Grey Knights here?
Sure. So this Grey Knight opponent of Nick's has a Tech Brain, that same Grandmaster with Sigil of Exigence, Drago, 2 squads of 10 Terminators, like them a little bit more than the Paladins right now, 1 squad of 5 Strikes, 3 Nemesis Dread Knights, a Calidus, and an Eversor. So he's got 1 less Dread Knight than my opponent had, but he's got a lot more trash to play the game with. How'd this game go, Nick?
So yeah, this game was certainly my weirdest game of the weekend. It was also, I talked a little about like learning, some stuff from the Vanguard game, but certainly was like, I think the moment where the decisions around like what to use Cabal points on really clicked in for me. This was supply drop. I went first, which was very unfortunate. Thousand Suns is an army that loves to go second. They have a 2 CP stratagem called Warp Sight, which basically lets you use a Psyker to spot, which then all the other Psykers can see through that Psyker and gain ignores line of sight. So like if you go second, you can basically threaten Magnus shooting from behind a wall turn 1. Also, I don't want the Grey Knights to go second because they get to pick up at the end of my turn 1. Very scary. And also because of supply drop, that 15 at the end, I now have to be very aggressive and clear a lot of his Terminators, or else he can just dogpile the last objective and get 15 points. Unfortunately, the way the objectives were going was my objective goes away first, his objective goes away second, and then the middle sticks around. So we both know the middle is going to be very important in this game. Turn one, also, this is another one where like I kind of had to make the hard decision of drawing secondaries and being like, I can't do these secondaries, so I guess these are going to be CP. I know turn one I drew like no prisoners overwhelming, and I'm like, very cool. Like I'm not getting either of these. He did like scout an assassin out, so I zipped over and blasted an assassin for some no prisoners points and also just kill it. And also to like put some guys on an objective and be like, I'm threatening 5, if you come over here, yada yada. Advancing the mutas out again, of course, 1 to screen like his 3-inch deep strike shooting because I don't want those coming into my backfield, and 2 to try to force an overcommitment. I didn't put them in charge range of the Nemesis Dread Knights, and I know he's probably not killing them in shooting. So like if he brings something out, that means I get to like really blast it. He puts Drago squad on the top objective by natural expansion, I suppose. Turn, what is it? Bottom of 1, yeah. I didn't have anything fast enough to get up there, and the way the terrain was too, it really just exposed it to like his shooting, and I couldn't shoot him back because of the way that L was positioned. It turned out like the objective, I guess, closer to his side was more of my safe objective. So I went for this Twist of Fate warp site play where it was like Magnus sees through the disc guy to shoot the paladins with Drago, and let's try to kill some. And I passed him like 14 4-up invulns, and he's like, what if I made 12 of them? And I'm like, unfortunate. I guess I killed 2 paladins, and then 1 comes back. Oh no, they weren't paladins, they were Terminators. Yeah, that's the difference. Is this guy's 2x10 Terminators, so they all have apothecaries. So my whole turn 2 ends up being like net 1 Terminator dead. And I'm like, this is horrible. I'm losing the damage race like terribly. And at that point is I just started like double doom bolting. So for those, I guess, aspiring sorcerers out there, Cabal points are an important resource to manage. If you want to double doom bolt, you need 14 because it's 7 Cabal points. And the second one has to come from the Lord of Forbidden Lore. And it's 18 inches line of sight. If you're within 6 of a Mutalith, it's 36. Luckily for me, this guy's teleporting close to me, so I don't really need to like hang out near my Mutaliths because 18 inches is still quite a long range. And a lot of his stuff is flamers, so he wants to be within 12 of me. And so turn 3 is kind of when it starts really clicking. Is like I'm like, I just need to start double doom bolting and then using my other 5 for like double moving something. And so I'm just like double doom bolting Dread Knights, shooting it with some flamers, dead. Double doom bolting Dread Knights, shooting with some flamers. There's also this weird like thing going on in the middle where he's moved the Sigil of Exigence guy into the middle, so I can't shoot him because he just teleports away. But what I can do is threaten to charge him. So I move a Muta and Magnus up, and I'm like, mists. And he actually missed 6 inches back, which is a part I didn't realize that stratagem could do. So he made my 1-inch charge into like, 6-inch charges or whatever. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to shoot you. I'm just going to charge you with Mutalith Magnus. And turns out his army's really bad at punching high toughness stuff in melee because they're all strength 6. A weird thing we learned this game is Magnus's -1 damage doesn't work against Grey Knights because it says excluding psychic weapons. But there is a very funny Thousand Sun stratagem that is insane into Grey Knights. I forget the name of it because it's the only turn game I ever used it. But what it is it's 1 CP, any phase, any Thousand Suns unit. All of your enemies, like all of the enemy unit that just targeted you, their psychic weapons become hazardous, and you get a 4 feel no pain against them. So basically now the last 2 rounds of the game boils down to Terminators wailing on Magnus in the middle while he just keeps popping the stratagem, and they do like 2 or 3 damage to him, and then 3 of their heads explode. Very funny game. We just deny the hell out of each other's primary because we both start realizing like we just need to kill each other. And if you want to send us to the scorecard, as you can see here, I think we both he gets 10 on primary, I get 5. None of us let anyone get points at the end, which is crazy. And the secondaries are very weird. The secondaries at the end, so this game ends up being a 46-46 draw. I like look at what he had left, and I'm on his home field, and I'm like, I know he has Defend Stronghold, but he also has Storm Hostile. And the only thing I have on this home field is this like little shitty unit of like Exalted Sorcerer plus Rubric that he's been whittling down over the game. That's been like fighting some guys back there because I Umbrella effect at one point to get capture, I believe. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, if he draws Storm, I think his surviving like thing could come over here and kill me and storm this, and then I lose the game. So I need to like leave this objective and hope he doesn't draw like Defend Stronghold. And then he drew Defend Stronghold, and I'm like, oh no. And then he doesn't put anything back there, and he tries to go for Bring It Down on Magnus, and I'm like, what? And then he goes, well, I didn't kill Magnus. Anyways, we tie because I get Defend Stronghold. And I'm like, no, dude, you got to like hold your objective for that. And he's like, oh my God. And I'm like, dude, just 3-inch on it. You're good. We tie. Like, good game. So very funny game with Nathan. Who's the better sorcerer? Who knows? Anyways, we killed a lot of shit this game. So it was fun.
Hell yeah, man. What an ending. Oh, wow. Yeah, I got nothing, man. This game sounds cracked.
That's funny.
It was both of us just not knowing how much damage we did into each other, and then both having to hit the gas immediately, and it kind of working for both of us.
Hell yeah, man. I don't think we've had a draw on this show in a long time.
No, this is my only second draw of, I think, like tournament games ever.
Yeah, I don't think I've had one. I have to get the Air Force on the show at some point. Anyway, so we're moving on into round 3. We are playing Hammer and Anvil, Chilling Reign, Vital Ground. This is very different. We really like Vital on Crucible. I think Vital's really interesting on Sweeping. Hammer's kind of funky because you can definitely get from one side to the other a little bit quicker, but it also leads to diminishing interactions with the terrain that I'm sure we'll get into if either of y'all played on layout 8. I didn't. Yes, let's get into it. Lucas is playing into Ynnari. Nick, you know more about elves than I do. Why don't you run it? Oh, he's playing Trent. It's the boy. Please tell me you have of that photo of you guys in this next slide. No, you don't. Oh, that photo's great. Anyway, so this is our boy Trent coming up from California. He spent a lot of time up in Portland, so we're really excited to see him here. Nick, you want to run us through his list? This is a sick Aeldari list.
This is a Chad Ynnari list. So we got Yvrain leading the army, which is what makes it Ynnari. We got 2 Falcons. We got a squad of 5 Fire Dragons. We got a Lynx. That's like the big Forge World tank, right?
Zoom!
It's got like a big cannon. 2 squads of 5 Shadow Specters, 3 Shroud Runners, 2 D Cannons, a squad of 11 troops that goes with Yvrain for the +1 to wounded and melee, I believe. 5 Warp Spiders, Drazar, 5 Mandrakes, 2x3 Reavers, and 2x5 Scourges. 1 squad's got Dark Lances, and 1 squad's got Heat Lances.
I think I missed his 5 Incubi as well. He's got 5 Incubi.
That makes sense.
Drazar,
I was like, Drazar on his own seems a little weird. All right, 5 Incubi to go with the man, the myth, the legend, Drazar. All right. Tell us how this went.
Definitely a bit of a goofy game. I was really terrified we were playing on layout 4. And I was terrified of how mobile he was, but also, he's got a lot of anti-tank between the Scourges and the Fire Dragons and the 2D cannons and yada, yada, yada. But this is something that I realized after a while of playing a list where it's like mostly hulls, but also 30 Space Marines, is like if someone has a lot of hull-cracking firepower, it's going to take them a while to not only cut through your rhinos, but then also like hurt the guys inside. So I was like timidly stepping around. He was getting a couple of little angles here and there. His D-cannons were taking their pound of flesh. And then I realized, like, it's just time to go. Let's, like, try to get some primary and win the game that way. Because there's only 2 midfields. Like, if I just put enough stuff on all of them, he doesn't want to really, like, live close to me at all. Between Overwatch and just being a squishy little elf. And, his, like, go turn killed, I think, like, a Rhino, 5 Plague Marines, 2 drones. And I'm like, oh, well, I still have lots and lots of points left. So at that point, I just, like, took over the rest of the game. And it was impossible for him to get primary. So definitely doing the Death Guard thing here of just, like, having more stuff than your opponent can possibly kill. He was pretty efficient at killing my T9 3-up armor holes. But then, like, the dudes inside were able to just camp on the objectives well enough. And it was really hard for Trent to dislodge me. Even if he was killing my stuff on the points, he couldn't like take those points back. Sticky objective didn't end up mattering that much here, but this was Hammer and Anvil is one layout where having the layers of trash is really powerful because armies that are like mobile but in a very conventional way, which I think Eldar are. They don't have like 3-inch deep strikes. They don't have reactive runaways now that Phantasm is now a balanced stratagem. It's hard for them to like come into your backfield, especially on Hammer and Anvil. So I just had like my 3 Nurglings hanging out back there guarding my sticky objective while everything else, including the Predators, like just pushed forward in this huge wave that he wasn't able to stop. So on deployments like that, and as well on like Crucible, it's fairly easy to just guard your back corner with your lots and lots of trash, while the Death Guard go and do the work. So fun game. Wasn't that close, but was a good time. The Lynx, unfortunately, didn't really do anything. It's actually pretty bad at killing things. It's got like 6 D6 damage shots, so like
It's got
pretty
4
poor overall.
I'm
4
looking at
D6
it right
damage
now.
shots
Yeah,
for such a giant tank. Like
hits on 3s at 16 3d6. The funny thing about it is it's an assault gun, and this thing auto advances 9. So like it can
moves 16.
cut angles.
you
But
can zip
yeah,
over and like kill a scout sentinel probably.
yeah.
Like that's about it. Like he was routine. He failed to kill a rhino and then he failed to kill a drone. I'm like, oh, this thing is a joke.
It's very cool looking, but
It did look cool, but it didn't kill anything.
Yeah.
So
it's also pretty cheap though. It's like sub 200, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 180.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I just underestimated what this, or not underestimated, but
Overestimated, yeah.
misinterpreted what this
yeah,
thing
a
was.
fast fire
Yeah.
prism that's less reliable.
I thought I was about to get like Shadow Sworded, basically.
It looks like it, but yeah. Gotta respect the intimidation power. Was this on layout 4 or layout 8?
Layout 4.
Okay, cool. So kind of normal stuff there. Sweet. Running on into my round on 3, I am playing into Death Guard, Lucas, as the resident Death Guard expert. What do you think of Cher's list?
Well, this is an absolutely sick picture. I don't think I've ever seen that art, so that's pretty cool. So Ryan Cherowich is our buddy in Portland. He's got a cool Death Guard list here. 2 bio professors. We've got 1 Termi sorcerer. We've got a Foul Blightspawn, Ty Fussy, my main man, and Mortarion the Flaccid. What the? We've got 2 squads of 10 Plague Marines, 2 Rhinos, 2 squads of 3 Dash Shroud Terminators, 2 drones with spitters, 2 PBC Elators, and 2 squads of... Wow, this guy really likes the number 2. Ryan, I'm disappointed in you. That is not Nurgle's number. So, yeah, he's got basically 2 of everything good.
Yeah, Ryan is very much of the opinion 1 is none, 2 is 1. And this list definitely shows it. It is... What do you think about this list, Lucas? You play Death Guard. Like, I'm curious to hear what you think about it.
I think it's pretty good on GW terrain, which is like really the only place where I'd run Mortarion. The thing is, like, he gives you a shot into some of the armies that are reliant on modifiers, but like every time I've seen him run, that person still loses to Death Guard. Or sorry, still loses to Necrons. And like, does he really help into Custodes? Yeah, ignoring mods is nice, but like it doesn't solve the fundamental problem of wardens are like still gonna have a 4 at Feel No Pain, and you have 350 less points of stuff to kill those wardens with. So I don't know. I think Morty's okay. He's in a good spot where like he's viable, but he doesn't really like auto.
He's not Magnus or Angron.
Yeah, he's mostly just not Magnus.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think that this list is trying to do like 1 too many things.
Yeah.
I think it would be a lot stronger if it like just gave up the Death Shroud or the PBCs or more you try to do everything at once here. It barely works. And Ryan is the kind of player who will make that kind of list work because he can be very selective with his engagements and know what to prioritize. But like, this is not a very forgiving list to play if you make a mistake here. Yeah, so we started off doing the Hammer and Anvil thing. I had to go first, which is a bummer. I threw both my Transcendent I threw my Transcendent onto one flank and my Nightbringer Void Dragon onto the other, and basically said, what are you going to do about it? Like, going after these Catan is a mega commitment that I don't think you can realistically make here. Come get some. I'm just going to score a bunch of primary while you overextend, and then Warriors are going to win the day. And then Ryan turn 1 pulls Assassinate Overwhelming Force and is like, well, Nightbringer. And I'm like, sure, dude, go for it. And he pushes his entire army at Nightbringer. Morty goes straight beeline. Both of his PBCs run out from behind walls to shoot entropies at him. He has a squad of Plague Marines. He has the Rhino go full distance, and the Plague Marines hop out, and they get barely within 6 inches, so he's in contagion range. And he's like, we're putting everything into him. Let's fucking go. And he does not kill him, even with Mortarion. He puts him at like 3 wounds. Woo, Catan. However, he has now fully exposed, and I have to make a really difficult decision here of, do I meet him in kind and slam everything on the table and say, I'm killing Mortarion? Because once Mortarion's dead, the game is over. Or do I try to sit back, play a bit more cagey, pick at his edges here and try to minimize my casualties? That's kind of the approach that I went for, and that was the wrong decision here. Morty ends this turn on like 5 or 6 wounds, maybe 7. And if I had just put the Plasmancer Warrior Brick into him, he would have just died, and then the game would have been over. But yeah, I don't... Wrong call. So he ends up getting to kill both the Catan the following turn, which was terrifying. I killed the Plague Marines, basically, and did some damage to Morty, and that was kind of it. And the Entropy Cannons just railed into me with that ignore mods. And then Morty switched his aura from better contagion range to everyone's in cover, which is not a thing that I knew he had. Fuck. In spite of that, I'm able to wear down Morty over just weight of firepower and whatnot. And I get my monolith up to that midfield objective on the left there. So, and Zaris is over there, and we're just brawling it out. Won't let anything go. Keep killing stuff. The monolith is like picking up a PVC every turn. He eventually throws the other squad of Plague Marines and a drone at the Transcendent that are on that midfield objective there. And they roll wildly hot and drop him to 2 wounds with just the Plague Marines melee after all the shooting and whatnot and grenades and everything. And then I get real lucky. I think I definitely should have lost this game at this point because he then hands my Transcendent. I've got 2 wounds left, and he hands me 3 invulns, and I failed 2 of them. And I'm like, all right, well, I really need to live here, but I've only got 1 CP, and if I can't precision out your characters, there's no point in living here. So screw it, and I hit one of the 2 5-ups. He's like, all right, you're down to 1 wound. Here comes the Plague Drone. 3 attacks at, 601 lethal. Lucas, is that right? You're muted.
611, but yeah.
611 lethal, same thing for a Catan. And he rolls 2 6s to hit. And I was like, oh no, that's 2 lethals. I've got 1 wound left. I fail both invulns. I'm like, all right, well, that's the end of that Catan, I guess, but it was worth a try. Boom! Both 5-up Feel No Pains. See you later. Spend the CP, kill both characters out of the Death Guard squad and like 3 other Plague Marines. Get 3 wounds back immediately. And with a little bit of reinforcement from some warriors, just shoot and fight my way through all that nonsense to get it done. Ryan goes and manages to take my home field here with this Death Shroud unit, which is so annoying, but I was out of trash to screen it out from happening, so he ingresses in and they crash out. But I'm okay with this because while it's going to mean he's going to get a lot of primary points, he can't leave that objective if he wants those points until he stickies it, which doesn't actually matter. But I could come and take it back really easily. But more importantly, just him being over there, he's way out of the fight. These guys move 5. That's all they do. So I end up making a really tough decision to just sort of abandon my home field and focus on everything else. And it ends up working out pretty well. This game was way closer than it looks. At the very end of the game, he was a single OC on an objective away from a 15-point swing where he would have scored Extend Battle Lines, Ins for 5, Storm Hostile for 5, and 5 points of primary. Which would have made this a 1-point game, but he was only able to contest that objective. He wasn't able to control it, so he gets none of those. It ends up being a 16-point win. This was real tight, and the dice scam got me out of it. I think the moral of the story is don't do what I did. Actually commit, kill Mortarion, move on with your life. I really don't like setting up plays that require I kill something, but sometimes it's just kind of what you have to do if you're going to get out of a tough situation. If your opponent is going to put their dick on the table and full commit, you got to make it can pay for it, and I just wasn't able to do that in this game. So I end up squeaking a win here, but on the back of Necrons more than on the back of my generalship. So not a bad way to end day 1. Sweet. Round 2. Nikolai is playing into Chaos Space Marines. Lucas, you want to run down this CSM list, which are apparently still a faction in the game? I thought they were removed.
Yep, this is round 3. We've got a CSM list kind of running a lot of the same stuff that was good before they got nerfed. We've got 2 Chaos Lords of Undivided, 1 Terminator Sorcerer of Nurgle, 1 squad of 10 Tzeentch Cultists, 2 squads of 5 Slaanesh Legionaries, 3 Slaanesh Rhino, 2 Undivided, 1 Slaanesh Rhino, so 2 for Chosen, 1 for Slaanesh Legionaries, 2 squads of 10 Undivided Chosen, 1 Undivided, 1 Nurgle Forge Fiend, and 3 squads of 5 Warp Talons. This dude is playing in 2023, and he thinks it's September. Nick, how'd this game go?
Yeah, so this game was interesting. What is it? Hammer Naval Vital. The board we had was pretty weird. We were playing on one of the GW layouts, but also like our board had no Ls, so like there were some random angles and sight lines that were there and not there. I asked Bert about it, and he said it's a bad board. We're sorry, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I just put my baby lone up guy on the backfield, and I'm like, all right, you can't shoot me unless you like crash into my castle. With the way the layout was with layout 8 on Vital Hammer, there's like these big like kind of like made L by like a 6x12 touching one of the 4x6s, and so that's kind of like where I naturally want to castle up. And also my opponent wants to do the same. So it being CSM, especially being like Chosen are still really fast, they can still punch up really hard. Forge Fiends can still do a lot of damage. He put a lot protecting his objective, and I was like, yeah, I'm just not really going to go deal with that. I'm going to like castle up on mine and then send guys out every turn to like slow you down and hurt you and that sort of thing. Turn 1, I draw like Area Denial and Cleanse. And this is also at the point of the game, or at this point in the tournament, I'm like, I need to make it my goal to like keep my Cabal around to double Doombolt, double move every turn, ideally. This was another game I went first on. Unfortunate because you can't, do the warp site thing turn 1, but is what it is. And so I wanted to get the most value out of double Doombolting. He put some Warp Talons on the line near my safe objective. And so basically what I do is I put a Mutalith in the backfield next to Lord of Forbidden Lore so that he can shoot a 36-inch range Doombolt downtown at them. And then I fly the disc guy out so he can shoot an 18-inch range Doombolt and like slow one of the other squads of Warp Talons. This ends up being... I also have a Mutalith go into this like terrain feature on my objective. It's hidden from one of the Forge Fiends. One of the other Forge Fiends could walk out and shoot at it. And I think he could have like maybe rolled a really high advance and charged it with Chosen. But his Chosen were mostly on the other side of the board, so I wasn't like super worried about him crashing into this Mutalith in melee. And so I lined up some shots and some Doombolts into the Warp Talons, and the Doombolts pop off. The first Doombolt does 9 mortals to one of the squads. The other Doombolt does 8 mortals or whatever. No, 6 mortals to the other squad. And I'm like, this is crazy. What's happening? So we just like pick up most of the Warp Talons in shooting and Doombolting. And the game starts off pretty well. This is also a weird moment where I realize with sequencing stuff. So my list is 20 Cabal if all of my sorcerers are alive and on the battlefield, all that. And you need 19 Cabal to do the double Doombolt, double move thing. So when I threw my Disc Sorcerer out there turn 1, if he kills it, I lose 2 Cabal. I'm only at 18 from that point onwards. But what you can do, since they're all started the shooting phase, is Doombolt him and then Warp Time him back behind the wall, which is exactly what I did. And then he cleansed because he hasn't shot yet, and it's in the shooting phase. So this army is very funny with that. So yeah. This ended up being, he kind of just advances Rhinos into the midfield. He walked a Forge Fiend out to shoot at the Muta. Didn't do a lot of damage to it. His surviving like 3 Warp Talons out of the 10 tried to go punch the Muta. Didn't kill it. Muta wallops him back. And at this point, there's a wall of Rhinos in the middle, and I have 2 Mutas on very high health. And so what I do is I'm like, well, I just need to slow him down. So I send both of the Mutas into the midfield. They charge the Rhinos, move block them. I'm able to obliterate one of the Rhinos through Muta Mortals. They have this end of movement phase, like pulse that they do to everything within 6 of them. So their Mortals tickle a Rhino down. And then my double Doombolts kill that Rhino. And then I don't even think I Twist of Fate. I just like Warp Sight, full hit and wound rerolls, and just blow up a Chosen squad down to like a Chosen Lord. That Lord, this is when the game starts to get silly. The Lord, the Rhino that I killed exploded. The Lord charges into the Muta in the middle to get area denial. The Muta explodes, kills the Lord, kills like another, or does like 6 mortals to another Rhino, because these guys explode for D6. Blast this Legionnaire squad for like 4 mortals. And we're both like, this game is truly chaotic. And that's kind of like what happens at that point onwards. He's pretty castled up on his side objective with like some like, cultists and Warp Talons and his other Chosen Rhinos over there. And he's trying to make a play for my backfield. But I also do the same because at this point, there aren't really any threats for Magnus, right? I've dealt with one of the chosen squads. I've dealt with the Legionnaires. I've dealt with the Forge Fiend on my side of the board. And I set up this play to like Warp Sight Magnus at one of the Forge Fiends. And then I realized, wait, I can just double move Magnus 32, touch his home field, and then true line of sight see this Forge Fiend. Very cool. And throw some magic at that guy. Yeah, this game just felt like I had crazy mobility compared to him. Doombolt is absolutely insane into these guys because they're relatively like low wound count on their rhinos and their Forge Fiends, and when you throw 10 plus mortals at them a shooting phase, to start the shooting phase, it's crazy. And then the mutas just worked as fantastic move blocks to slow the rhinos down and basically let me tell him where he got to move his chosen. So good game to Zeke, but this was certainly one where I kind of felt like the power and the strengths of the T-Suns were clicking, and I was able to utilize them very well. And it was
man.
82-23 victory.
Brutal. Sweet. Well, it is time to run through some plugs here. If you're enjoying what you're listening to, you may want to keep the conversation going over on our Discord. That's available over at patreon.com/statcheck. You can also check out some of our fantastic channel sponsors. In particular, if you're in need of WTC or GW terrain, those are both produced by our boys over at Whale and Yutani. There is a discount code for those. Some of these discount codes you got to be a patron to use. Some of them you don't. I don't remember exactly how it works. Check the links in the description. If you are in the vague northeastern North American kind of area, Red Dragon is our big daddy. We love him dearly, and he takes good care of us. He'll take good care of you as well. Get all your Warhammer product over there at a very reasonable price. They do both new and used stuff. If you're interested in any of our widgets and whatnot, you can get those over on Etsy from I always forget at this that store's name. It is Saltire Games, SALTIRE Games, linked in the description as well. If you want to check out the other shows on the network, if you're more interested in the highest end teams environment, make sure to check out Enter the Matrix. If you're interested in a lot of the numbers, check out Stat Check. If you're interested in the what do you call it? The experience of being a person with a life in addition to Warhammer. Check out X and 1. They're on hiatus right now, but they'll be back sooner or later, and their content holds up forever because it's not about the meta. So you can go check some of that stuff out. And last but certainly not least, you got to check out the most recent addition to the Stat Check Network, which is our boy singular Steve Joel over at Champions of 40K. I believe the first episode of that being on the network is out now. These are some of the highest quality, like professional broadcast quality interviews with major community players that you will ever come across. So check all that out. But now, back to the show. Day 2, boys. Here we go. Round 4, we're playing Scorched Earth, Chilling Rain, Dawn of War. This is a GW recommended mission. It's still Dawn of War, which is a bummer, but that's how it goes. I think as far as Dawn of War missions goes, this is kind of the one that people like, particularly being a hold 1, hold 2. A lot of the Dawn of War silliness kind of is somewhat alleviated there. I think Dawn of War is best on like Scorched or Pryos, or anything that has that distinction there. Sweet. Lucas, it is now Lucas's turn to play into the Ultramarines. This list looks oddly familiar, but a little bit different. Nick, you want to run us through this Ultra Vanguard, whatever you were calling it, list?
Yeah, this is our boy Max playing his version of Vanguard. He's got Calgar, Ventress. He's got the Harmesis. That's the apothecary with lethals with Blade Driven Deep. We got the Phobos Libby with Shadow War Veteran. I believe that's the Scoot and Shoot guy who gives his unit Lone Op. Company Heroes, 2 squads of 5 Infiltrators, a squad of 6 Plasma Inceptors, a squad of 3 Bolter Inceptors, and then 6 Bolter Aggressors to go with the Calgar Harmesis brick over the Eradicators. 2 squads of 3 Eliminators, 5 Scouts, and then 6 Devastator Sons.
Are there no Impulsors in this list? Just regular Eliminators, raw dogging it. Respect. All right, what do we got? How'd this go, Lucas?
Eliminators. I meant to write Eradicators. Sorry.
Oh, gotcha. That makes a lot more sense.
Melta Lads. And quick amendment, Shadow War Veteran is Vect. So This is a pretty interesting list. Max and I, this is against Max, our homie in Portland. We've played this matchup once already, and it really comes down to, the Ultramarines have a lot of up close firepower that they can bring to bear, but in a close range shootout, the Death Guard are going to whoop their ass. It really comes down to like how many units can those dev sense scalp out before the brawling gets started, because they're very good at picking up both, basically any unit in my army. They're very good at killing hulls. They're very good at killing squads of Plague Marines because of the blast weapons with +1 AP with the strat. So it's going to be a very careful positioning game for me. And hopefully I can get those scents in a position where they don't just break my back over the course of the first couple turns. So we end up playing very cautiously in the first couple turns. I put a drone kind of hanging out over the line as I'd like to think it was bait. It ended up not working out very well for me. But he obliterates that drone, and then I bring some predators in to shoot the sense who are out in the open, forgetting that the Raven Guard ability will kick in and they'll get cover and -1 to hit because I'm more than 12 inches away. So that really hurts the predators. But with some strat use, and they're also very far away, so I'm not going to get them in stinky range. But with some strat use, I mean, the predators are still good at killing infantry, so I kill 2.5 of them. And then we're just kind of like jockeying for position in the middle. We're both trying to hold the objectives with as little as possible. He sends out the Ventress squad company heroes. I obliterate them with Plague Marines. He kills my Plague Marines with the Centurions. So we're just kind of trading back and forth. And then he decides to go with the Calguard brick. And this is where I start feeling like the game is going very strongly in my favor. I think Max kind of jumped the gun maybe a little bit here. He had a very good turn and kind of like smelled blood in the water, I think. Saw blood in the water? Smelled blood in the water? Whatever it is. He tried to like, he dropped in and did a ton of damage to me on one flank. And then kind of, I think, underappreciated how immobile my army was. I wasn't going to be able to respond to him very well. So he should have just stayed put with his aggressor brick with Calgar and locked down his primary. Instead, he sends them into the middle objective to kill Typhus. And I get to collapse on that unit, pick off another little squad of Inceptors who drop down. So I cripple his mobility a little bit and then also just wail on the Calgar brick because they're right in front of like the 20 Plague Marines I have left. So double grenade, Flamers with AP2 ignore cover, plasma volume at AP4 damage 2, run into melee, bash the hell out of them. And they're like right in front of me at this point. So the reactive runaway won't be too helpful either. And then the Carnivore was actually very helpful as well, running in and wiping out the remainder of the unit. Because Plague Marines don't hit super duper hard in melee, not enough to kill Calgar, but the Carnivore certainly is enough to finish that off. So ended up being a pretty close game until about turn 3, when the primary started becoming much more in my favor. I was able to get a burn off and was able to draw pretty well on my secondaries for the second half of the game. Max does concede at the end of turn 3, so we kind of just like run through our cards and give him his remaining bring it down points and stuff like that. But yeah, pretty close game overall. This is a game where all of the tools that we have into each other are like super lethal. Inceptors and Dev Sense are just like slaughtering whatever they can see when they come down. But in turn, like if they get too close to the Death Guard in any way, it's just like complete obliteration. So it's a pretty fun positioning game, and always enjoy playing Max.
Hell yeah, man! That is a classic Max mistake if there ever were one. The oh man, what if I just fucking killed him and then oh no. Didn't work out.
So throwing the game in the trash, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It turns out treating the Calgar aggressor brick, like your one forward positioning unit for Typhus, was not a good trade.
Unfortunate. Very cool example here of where the Assassinate Bring It Down did seem like it paid off pretty effectively. Because man, is this army made of murder?
Yeah. If you have the ability to kill Death Guard stuff, you should absolutely take those because you're just getting rewarded. Especially if your army already is a way to generate command points like Calgar. Like, I feel like Marine players, Calgar players should absolutely take Fixed at every opportunity. Because, like, the main upside of Tactical is just gone.
Command points. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Spicy. Alrighty. And it is time for the beginning of the main segment of today's episode, which is people playing against Wolf Jail.
Ah, woo, dude.
Nick, you want to tell us a little about Wolf Jail, what it is, how it works, and what's in this list?
Yeah, I talked about Wolf Jail months ago, and no one listened to me. And now everyone out here is like, "Oh no, Thunderwolves are so good!" Ah. And I remember us talking about this back in September, so we warned you guys. Um, so yeah, this is a Space Wolves list playing in the White Scars Stormlands detachment. So all kinds of heresy going on here. The whole army advances and charges and falls back and charges. It's got access to if you end a fallback, advance or normal move within 9, they could just reactive move flat 6. I believe that works on any unit in there. Don't think it's limited to mounted.
I think it's like it might be D6 for everybody, but flat 6 for
It's,
mountains.
it's everybody.
It's just flat
It's
6.
everybody flat 6?
Yeah,
It's
everybody
the
flat
one
6.
strat that you can use on the Wolfen in that attachment.
Yep. Yeah, it's wild. So that combos very well with what is called a Wolfguard Battle Leader on Thunderwolf. This is a guy who is like their lieutenant, gives the unit lethal hits, and also has a once per game after you finish shooting the unit, they are allowed to Blood Surge into you. Although this Blood Surge is different than other Blood Surges, because none of them are consistent. So this one, it is you make a normal move up to D6 inches towards the closest enemy unit. You can in an engage range of that unit. Doesn't count as a charge. So what's really scary is if you try to move block these guys and you get within 9, they'll come right up to you 6 inches and be like, "Bet you want to shoot me now, huh?" And then Blood Surge into your screen and tag it so you get 1 shooting activation. So really the trick is to stay 9.1 outside of them, but this army is fast. They're going 10 plus D6. They have +1 to advance and charge in those Thunderwolf squads. They have a 2 CP auto advance 9 stratagem. They have a 1 CP -1 to hit and wound and shooting, which does only work on mounted, but that's what the Thunderwolf are. This one's also a battle tactic, which can be repeated, and there are captains in all the squads, Wolflord on Thunderwolves. They also have a turn 1 deep strike / ingress unit. Well, it's turn 1 strat reserves. So one of the Thunderwolf squads can top of 1 show up and try to go for an 8-inch charge into your screen, or ingress immediately. So if you go first, be prepared for that. Yeah, the army does have some shortcomings. It's a lot of AP1. If you've got like 2 up armor, if you've got AOC access, they do kind of have a little bit of a hard time chewing through you, but it is a very fast army that lends itself very well on these GW boards. I know there's a lot of people that joke about mounted being very bad because it can't go through walls like infantry, but what if we introduced a piece of terrain that we said was 2 inches less than height and you can just go over it? Those are all over GW boards, and also like the L's don't always go all the way on these GW boards, so you can end up just like charging through half of it. So especially playing this on Dawn of War going second, very scary. So yeah, the army basically just tries to pin you into your DZ, lock you out of primary, and punch you to death, aka Wolf Jail. So let's go over this Wolf Jail list played by friend of the show, Colby Hopkins. We got a lieutenant with combi weapon. This is the guy with all the keywords, and he's a lone op. We got Logan Grimnar on foot. He does not lead anything. He does not need to lead anything. He is just a tanky Terminator guy with deep strike that deep strikes onto an objective later in the game. Once per game during the charge phase, he can call the Wolf Howl. I don't know what it's called, but that's what I'm calling it. Yeah. So it's basically this Space Wolf Wah that gives the entire army charge rerolls and reroll hits for that charge phase. What else? We got 3x1 Wolfguard Battle Leader on Thunderwolf. That's the lieutenant and Blood Surge guy I was talking about. These guys have Power Fist, Storm Shields. One of these Wolfguard guys has the Arrive a turn earlier from Strat Reserves enhancement. We got 3 Wolf Lords on Thunderwolves with Power Fists and Relic Shields. That's the Storm Shield that gives them an extra wound, so there's 7 wounds, which is really annoying. 2 squads of 5 Fenrisian Wolves for actions and screening. 2 squads of 3 Plasma Inceptors, because that datasheet is still cracked. And then Colby's got 1 squad of 10 Wolfen and 2 squads of 5 Wolfen. Wolfen are a little weird. They did get like a points drop and a weapon bump in the latest data slate. So they have like 4 attacks each at 612. AKA they swing as hard as Deathwing Knights. They also have a random like D6 blast assault gun, which is like 501 or 401.
Yeah, I think it's 401, but it's 12-inch range for some reason. I don't understand what's happening. So, they don't have 5s?
Yeah. What this is for is like this gun is surprisingly good at clearing chaff that you're trying to screen with, especially because they could just oath the chaffs thing. And so, yep, they can clear with that. Also, it's assault, so they can advance to do actions. Wolfen ROC 0, so that's a little bit of a weakness. They are just going to run at you. They're not going to be holding objectives. and then there's a Calidus Assassin. Oh, and one less stratagem I do want to mention that is also a battle tactic in this detachment is they have a you use it before you charge, use it at the start of the charge phase. It gives your unit charge rerolls and lance that turn. And since it's a battle tactic, you can repeat it. Very strong. So yeah, tell us about getting out of wolf jail, dude.
Yeah, let's see if I can afford Wolf Bale. The big thing to also note about this particular matchup is that there's been a lot of discussion and controversy on the internet about whether or not weapon modifiers like Thunderwolves, like Black Templar Sword Brethren, like I don't know who else has this rule. And whether or not that gets around half damage modifiers that Catan have, and so does the Avatar of Cain, I guess. For a while, it was ruled at the WTC that it does not, at GW events that it does not. Like, it was sort of ruled that way. A lot of people didn't know this and thus played it like it did, but these were the rules. Recently, the WTC has reversed course and said, you know what, screw it. All the modifiers happen at the same time, and because they're in touch with GW about this kind of thing, it's sort of assumed that this is the intention. Justin Curtis has also said that this was how it was always ruled, which is not true, but that's not the point. At this point, though, we are fully in the other end of the bell curve now. All modifiers are regular. Don't read the rules too closely. That's kind of where we're at. And the moral of the story is that means that these Thunderwolves, who are +1 damage on the charge, when they go into Catan, they can hurt a Catan. They don't obliterate a Catan, but like if everyone fights, they average like just over killing it, I think is the math there. I don't remember the specifics. It's a lot. Is the moral of the story. Yeah. And Colby and I had played this at the beach, actually. You may remember our beach practice weekend. And I had won that game in feeling pretty comfortable about it. I think that it was pretty tight on points, but like I felt like I had control at most points in time. But that was when we were playing with the Thunderwolves doing 1 damage apiece, not 2. And so I was pretty skeptical of this. I was also on sweeping instead of on dawn. So I was actually able to pace things out and sit a little bit further back and whatnot. But Colby also had more guns. He had like he didn't have the wolf, and he had a lancer in their place. So a matchup that I've played before, but under some different conditions. The biggest thing that was different between those two games, though, is that he started everything on the board, said, you're playing Hypercrypt, you can screen really well. I don't want to try for this turn 1 ingress. This game, he said, screw it, I'm going to try for the ingress. And that just like did not enter my brain. I did not think about this at all. Just didn't process it properly. I mean, I kind of did. I set it up so that if he showed up, he showed up regular, he wouldn't be able to charge me. But the ingress, I just assumed I was going second, I guess. I don't know what was happening. But as a result of this, both of my warrior bricks were like super vulnerable from one flank. And when I ended up going, and I didn't have a Locust over there to go zone it on that left side, which was so stupid. So turn 1, I used the monolith to teleport the Plasmancer squad out of the way, because that's going to be more important to me. I need those guns. And the Chronomancer squad is just going to have to take it. It's a bummer, but the walls were playing on sort of the NTL style layout. It is layout 2, but the walls go like all the way around, so I can actually move block him pretty hard. So he's not going to get a ton of dogs into me. I think he ends up with 2 ranks of 2, who then precision out the Chronomancer. Bummer, but only end up killing like 10 warriors on top of that, maybe 13. No, it was 13. I know it was 13, because then on my top of 2, they failed their battle shock check, which like at 7 warriors, who cares? Except that I care so much. I'll get there in a sec. So the thing that I learned in the original game that I wanted to implement here is that these dogs are really good at killing a Catan, but like just barely and just a Catan. So what you really don't want to do, because he's got these 3 bricks, is be like Catan, Catan, Catan. And then the 3 bricks go dead, dead, dead. Instead, what you want to do is have all your Catan and Xeris ball up together and say, you can kill maybe one of us, but not all of us. And I'm going to make sure that it's not Nighty, because he's got the dev wounds, which are just so good into these invulns. So we kind of push that whole ball up into the right on turn 1. Don't actually even get on the objective because of the way Colby's deployed. He can't really get to me that effectively on turn 1, and he ends up not being able to, which is great. I slam some scarabs up the middle in order to block that off and score some points. And then he rushes in, kills that Chronomancer and 7 warriors. They fail their battle shock, which is such a bummer because I proceed to draw capture enemy outpost, deploy teleport homers. and I see the frickin' Matrix and all of his dogs are crashing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I 3-inch the monolith into his deployment zone, he's got his 40 mil lone off lieutenant, who is not listed here. No, he's at the top, yeah, lieutenant with combat weapon, covering his back chip. But the monolith can show up at 3, and then the guys can get out 6 on top of that. So these dudes could get out, they could fully screen the monolith a full 6 away, so the dogs can't touch the monolith. And they could deploy a teleport homer in his deployment zone, and they could capture enemy outpost and deny him 5 more primaries, so he'd get a 0, because I was able to deny the other ones because he didn't really have a ton on them with OC. That's the problem this list has, is that the Wolves are really the only OC, right? Because the Fenrisian Wolves and the Wolfen are all OC 0, so he's got to hold objectives with his characters, with the Wolf squads, or like the Inceptors, which he doesn't want to do. They're in the sky, obviously. So I'm not able to pull off this play, which is like heartbreaking to me because it was everything that I love in Warhammer. It was going to be beautiful and nothing was going to hurt, but I got punished really hard for not screening the ingress properly. So that's fair enough. He eventually does get to crash a squad of wolves into my Catan ball, but because of how I've positioned with the using the walls to minimize how many guys can get in, he's not actually able to kill a Catan, and we just start scrapping, fighting, and I kill everything. I kill through that squad of wolves, I kill through the second squad of wolves, and then at the very end of the game, I kill through the third squad of wolves. The Placeptors drop in and see that Nightbringer, oh my gosh, I messed this combat up so bad. I messed up my micro. I won't get into how, but I messed up my reroll allocation. And so Nightbringer ended up touching a piece of terrain and not on an objective, so I lost 5 points of primary, or gave Colby 5 points of primary, I don't remember which way it was. And then the Placeptors dropped in and got to shoot at him. One of the things that this list is really good at is because it relies on that AU in order to get its rerolls in melee, it doesn't need them in shooting. So it gets to oath the shooting target every turn. So the Placeptors get to drop in and just blow the hell out of the Nightbringer as hard as they can, because it's a bummer. Colby says he was even mad that the Nightbringer play failed. Oh, it was such a bummer. It was on me entirely. That was just a bad micro mistake in my rerolls. But yes, they drop in. But this is a big tip for Hypercrypt players. Whenever you play against Placeptors, make sure Xeris finds them, because Xeris will find the Placeptors and he will make them go away. Because this man has 3 shots and 4 attacks at 933. So he's just like, hey, squad of Placeptors, pew pew, kills 2 of them, runs up to the other one, chops 2 of them in half, and that's just 4 Placeptors just removed with a guy who like isn't doing anything relevant right now. So we keep jumping around, killing stuff. Our Catan start healing. I set up for a 9-inch charge to get back onto my own home field to prevent the Calidus assassin from burning it, but I'm unable to do so. I try to shoot her, can't kill her with shooting, can't fit the monolith in a place to take shots at her, so she survives, failed the 9-inch charge. That's how it goes. So he burns my home field, which was real scary, until on turn 5 when he drew capture enemy outpost and could not, even though there was no one in my army anywhere near there because there was no outpost to capture. I did admittedly draw defend stronghold as well at this point in time, but it is what it is. But yeah, so we're just slaughtering stuff at the end of the day. The big picture into whatever you're playing into Wolf Jail is shoot the Wolfen, charge the Thunderwolves, because the Thunderwolves are not +1 damage if you're charging them. Their melee is okay, but you can hit them pretty hard. You want to use the terrain to minimize how many of them are fighting you at all times. If you can wrap them, that's great, because they can fall back and do stuff, but if they have a desperate escape, things get a lot easier. They can't advance and fall back, so you get to control their movement that way. Like all of the things, all of the like, I love that this list is in the meta, because all of the like mid to high level tactics and micro stuff that you want to implement work really well against this if you do them properly. But if you don't, you get run over and punished. So I think that if you are like a perennial like 3, 2, 4, and 1 player who's trying to make it to the next step, get a friend who plays Wolf Jail and just rep it over and over and over again, so that you can get all the things figured out. But yeah, shoot the things that can't blood surge, charge the things that can, deny primary, play the points game. They run out of stuff eventually. The unfortunate part of this game that happened, though, is I keep using the monolith to do these great plays where he'll show up close and then the warriors get out. Just keep doing that on repeat. I go for a great 3-inch play where I have warriors steal 3 objectives simultaneously and shoot and kill a squad of Wolfen. It's just beautiful. And kill his stupid lieutenant on his home field. I think they killed him. Maybe they didn't. That's not the point. But then at the end there, I am running very low on clock because this is a very cerebral game, as I pointed out. There's a lot of micro-managing that needs to happen. And I see with like 6 minutes on my clock, I see a play that I think will win the game, where I can drop my monolith in between 2 ruins, get warriors out on either side, wholly within 6, take both objectives, fire some shots, call it a day. Unfortunately, it is not clear at all from the current state of affairs. Things get bumped around and whatnot, if a monolith fits in this spot. And I asked the TO if he would pause the clock and look up the measurements here and what the terrain is supposed to be. He elected not to do that. He just sort of asked Donald if it fit, and Donald said, yeah, probably. Why not? Because he's busy playing his own game. And with 6 minutes on my clock, I'm not going to spend the time to look this up. So I offered to Colby to say, hey, I'm going to do this because the TO says it fits. If it doesn't fit, though, we'll look it up later. I'm just going to resign because I don't have time and for a more nuanced arrangement than that. I drop in, I do the thing, we kill everybody, we win the game in by 10, ends up being the final score here, which is great, but then we go back and got to look up if this monolith play works out. It turns out, it's not clear. On some of the maps that we're looking at, it works, and some of the maps that we're looking at, it doesn't. That's not clear enough for me. I think on the NTL maps, it does, which is the map that we were using, but it was very unclear. Colby had a different diagram that had different measurements on it. I wasn't comfortable taking a win off of that level of poor TOing. So I said, screw it. We're just going to back out. We'll flip the scores, and I'll end up taking the L on this one. But this matchup is very playable for Hypercrypt, and it's very playable in general. You just need to practice into it, I think, is the biggest thing, because you need a lot of little tools to add up. There's no one obvious strategy that solves this problem. You just have to be good at Warhammer, I guess, is kind of where I land on this.
You got to be better than the Wolves.
Guys, I got to run off to my scrim game.
Sweet. All right, man.
My last game was in the Custodes. I failed to kill them. But don't worry. Anti-infantry 2-up auto wins the matchup.
Evidently. All right. Catch you later, Lucas. Thanks for joining us. Sweet. So that's my Wolf Jail experience there. Yeah, it's a fun game. Really well played by Colby. Bummer of a situation there. Colby is completely blameless in that. I don't hold anything against it at all. He is a great guy. I played it real well. So I appreciate him for that. Eula says, my buddy plays a similar list. I've had 10 up plus reps into it with Krons, and I can tell you that versus a top tier Space Wolf player, Thunderwolf Cavalry are too efficient. I don't believe it. Play better. But we'll see how that goes. So now it is time for the second part of Wolf Jail, which is Nick is also playing versus Stormlance, and he is playing into our boy Linton from the Air Force team, who is running a slightly different list here. The difference is here, he's got also Logan, also the 6 characters on Wolves, also the 18 Thunder Wolves, the 2x5 Conversion Wolves. He bumps all the way up to a full 30 Wolfen. Which is a Chad move. Love that. He still has the Calidus, but he has Bjorn the Fell-Handed, which unlocks the dreaded double Vect, which I think is a really cool part of this. I know Forrest Fantone took this to LVO, the Bjorn and Calidus combo, and it does wonders into Armor of Contempt, which is the main thing you're worried about. So if you're not playing into Grey Knights and you get shut down by a lot of 2-up AOC, consider the Bjorn Calidus combo as a way to solve it. Oh, Ulyss's buddy is Forrest. That's awesome. Forrest and I haven't gotten a chance to play this yet, but we really should. I'm curious how it goes. So how was your experience into Wolf Jail, Nick?
Yeah. So I was playing against Linton Rowan. I know he's been a big champion of the the 30 Wolfen for a long time in 9th edition. Yeah, so this game was pretty spooky. So luckily, like what you said, this is definitely one of those lists that will surprise you if you don't have reps into it, but we've been playing reps into this since September because this is the list Colby's been drilling. So we even have multiple Beach Hammer practice weekends into it. So thank you, Colby, for teaching me how to give me the tools, the keys, say, to get out of Wolf Jail. So this one, deployment is really important. Because one of the big tools I have to stopping him in this matchup or slowing him down are those Disc Sorcerers. So the Disc Sorcerers, Exalted Sorcerer and Disc, have an ability at the end of the movement phase. On a 2-up, they pick an enemy unit with an 18 that they can see, and they have its movement characteristic, have advance rolls, and have charge rolls. So I'm waiting to see where Linton deploys his 2 Thunderwolf units that start on the board, so I can counter deploy my Disc Sorcerers to hopefully zoom out and catch an angle on these guys and slow them down turn 1. Another thing, too, is, right, Scorched Earth. Primary-wise, you're getting Hold 1, Hold 2, and Burning. So I know if he goes first, he's going to take over all the midfield objectives, and he's probably going to get 10s for a few turns. And my goal is to make it as hard as possible to knock him off my 5s every turn, right? Because if I want to get back into this game, I need to get like 5s every turn, and then get like the 10 maybe at the end, and maybe if I can break free, like burn an objective turn 4, right? Which would be fantastic. I also know that he's turn 1 unit he can bring in from strat reserves on either side, and so I need to screen it on the side closest to my castle, so that he doesn't just appear like super close to my DZ. The only restriction is he can't appear in my DZ, and he has to appear 9 inches away from me. So I screen the left side of my Dawn of War deployment with some Zangor Enlightened. And my right side, I kind of just let him have it because I don't put my army over there. I'm like, if you want to bring your strat reserve unit over here, it's not charging turn 1. So all it's going to do is advance, and I get to slow it. And then I get like to throw some Zangors in front of it, and I get to worry about it later. For my castle, I put the 2 mutas basically in front of my army, using walls on either side to block. So if he wants to charge, he either has to charge both of the mutas, and he can't get around them to touch guys behind the mutas. And then behind the mutas, I put Magnus. So if he kills the mutas and wants to consolidate, he has to come and touch Magnus, who will kill some wolves in melee. And behind Magnus, I put basically all of the rubrics, because another like way to lose this matchup is getting my rubrics touch, because they can't fall back and do anything. Over on the far right side, I did put like the Exalted Crystal squad. But that was more just to have something over there for some secondaries, and it's got the crystal, so it can relocate. And I put them on the way back line, so his strat reserve unit turn 1 didn't even really have like a legal charge into them because they're like behind an L, got all wacky. He ends up going first, which is a little bit of a bummer for primary wise. But it is nice for me to counterpunch, and also nice because I get access to like warp sight and all that. Spoiler alert, I won't be needing warp sight because he rolls 6s on his advances and just flies right at me instantly. He also brings in that squad from the side and makes the 8-inch charge. The unfortunate part is I did screen with Zangors a little bit back. I think because of where he put the Thunderwolves on the board, I actually did end up having to put a Disc Sorcerer there to screen, but also if I went first, the Disc Sorcerer would have flown out and slowed one of his squads. So it was a bit of a trade-off there I was willing to accept. So his squad goes for the 8-inch charge into the Disc Sorcerer. He does not call the Wah yet, or the Logan Wah. He just uses the double Lance, so they both get charge rerolls. He makes the 8-inch charge reroll into the Disc Sorcerer with one squad, kills it, and he charges just one Muta above my screen. Kills the Muta, barely, actually, kind of because of the whole, like, strength 6 lethals. He uses +1 to wound, but, like, it's a very weird profile. T10, 13 wounds, 5-up invul, 5-up feel no pain. And he doesn't want to consolidate into the next Muta because he wants me to make the, difficult decisions of basically, what to shoot to trigger the Blood Surge. So what I do is I take a look at what we got going on. I've got one squad on my doorstep here. I've got one squad on my doorstep here. And I got one squad way over there. So I fly my remaining Disc Sorcerer over there, slow down the squad in the distance. And I'm like, cool, I don't want you to be a problem. Now, what they do have to get around this is the 2 CP auto advanced 9 stratagem does actually get around the having advanced rolls because it's not an advanced roll. It's just make your advance a set characteristic of 9. That means they're still changing the move characteristic to 5. And they don't get the +1 to the advance because that's only 2 advanced rolls from the one of the wolf characters. So at most they're going 14, and then they're charging 2d6 halved. So that unit's so far away because he deployed it way off on the other side of the board. As long as I slow it, it's not going to get involved, and I can deal with these 2 in my face. So I know that I'm not going to be able to shoot the one over there because, like, the one that just killed my Disc Sorcerer, I guess on my left side, because as soon as I shoot it, it's going to Blood Surge into my Zangor Enlightened. So I'm like, here's the deal. Those Zangor Enlightened, I've set them up. So yes, you can charge them next turn, but they're not getting shot. So like they're these 3 Discotes are going to stop, 8 Thunderwolves from touching me. Fantastic. Let's deal with the 8 in front of me. So the Magnus basically just activates first, decides to do full hit and wound rerolls, blast the Thunderwolves. They surge into combat with the Muta. Actually, I think the Zangors were closer. He did end up making them closer. So he surges into combat with the Zangors, and I'm like, I get to charge with the Muta, and I get to charge with Magnus, and hopefully we do enough here that he doesn't have, like, any remaining guys to, like, kill that Zangor screen, right? But just in case that doesn't work, I have one Rubric squad basically as a second screen, like sacrificial. So if the Zangors die, I have a sacrificial Rubric squad he can go eat that I don't really care about. The Super Flamer squad and the Airman squad get to shoot some shots downtown at some approaching Wolfen. And then Magnus and the Mutalids start charging. And so that's a big thing in this matchup is just start charging shit at stuff. Thousand Suns are a shooting army, but Magnus still slaps in melee. He's 7 attacks at 16-3-3 with dev wounds. One of the things with Thousand Suns is you pick an ability in your command phase for all your psychic weapons, either dev wounds, sustained, or lethal. I basically pick sustained most of this game because it makes all of Magnus's stuff pop off, and you really need him to pop off to win this matchup. So between Magnus and the Muta and like the shooting and the fighting, they are able to, I think, get it down to just the 2 characters and like 1s-on-1, like the battle leader and the Wolf Lords on full. Unfortunately, the battle leader is able to still punch the Zangors and kills them all because he's got the flat 2 damage power fist. But I do at least have that sacrificial Rubric squad screen. So at this point in the game, I've basically dealt with 1 Thunderwolf squad. I've dealt with some of the Wolfen on the way in, and there's still 2 full health Thunderwolf squads. One is going to charge my Rubric screen, and one is slowed and not going to charge anything. He has 10 primary. Bummer. Go over to him. Magnus also switches to -1 damage this turn, because I know that he's either charging the Rubric screen or he's charging Magnus. He decides to go after Magnus. And he also starts throwing grenades at me, because all of these characters have the grenades keyword, which I forgot about. And holy cow, grenades are terrifying into Magnus, because Magnus has no mortal wound or devastating wound defense of any kind. So he's like, take 4, and now I'm charging you. I'm like, oh my god. So he hits Magnus with a full squad of Thunderwolves, knocks him down to like 8. T-Suns do have a lot of ways to defend your sorcerers and defend Magnus, which is kind of what my CP was going into at this point, because the instant I used that first full hit and wound rerolls turn 1, Linton was like double vect, and I'm like, cool, I'm never using that the rest of the game. So what I do is I have some CP banked for like CP rerolls, and there's also a 1 CP blanket damage, and then there's also Cabal points that you can use to reroll saves. So you can do that twice a turn, or twice a fight phase with Magnus, and then with the Lord of the Forbidden Lore. So I've got like a few rerolls and a few like minus damages out there. And also too, I know you're talking about modifiers and all that. The way that +1 damage interacts with -1 damage is -1 damage comes at the end. So the Thunderwolves charge, they go to damage 2, then minus brings them back to 1, which is nice. So I'm still just getting hit by 1 damage attacks. Magnus is now trapped in melee over on my turn. Through my turn of punching or his turn, right, where I get to punch back, and my turn of shooting, I get the Thunderwolf squad that just charged him pretty low. And at this point, I go, Linton, all of my sorcerers have sticks, which are all psychic weapons, my friend. And Magnus is a 6-inch aura of +1 to hit and wound for psychic weapons. So at this point, I start charging with all of my Rubric squads, because they all have a character with a stick, and they all have a sorcerer with a stick. And through double doom bolting and, Magnus shooting into combat with his non-blast gun. His blast gun was shooting a wolf in downtown. And sorcerers, stabbing people with their sticks or bonk people with their sticks in melee. I do manage to like obliterate most of these wolves in front of me. So we're like, okay, the wolves are dead. There's like a character alive over here. There's like some remnant wolfen that have made their way in that I've just been launching psychic bolts at from downtown. Okay, I think we're like starting to break out of wolf jail. This is looking good. And we have another turn, very sweaty turn of him committing everything that's left into Magnus that can hit him. And I think Magnus goes down to 1. And I'm like, any more damage? And he's like, no, dude, that's it. I grenaded you. I shot you. I punched you. You're at 1. And I'm like, oh my God, I guess we're getting out of wolf jail. We do have a very sweaty counterpunch turn where we again have to send all of the rubrics into melee to punch all of these wolfen and these random space wolf characters to death. But I also pop the crystal. The crystal goes and takes an objective. I think this is turn 3. Yeah, so he's still getting 10 primary a turn, but now I'm setting up to try to get 10 primary. And I'm trying to score my secondaries now at this point. Like whatever I draw, whatever I can score, just try to catch back up on points, because he's been, dominating the midboard for this entire game. We end up killing the guys in front of me. We end up, I think in a position where all he's got left is like this one Wolfen that's running away, and Bjorn and the Custodes, and it draws signals. So Magnus flies over and signals a corner. And then my Disc Sorcerer does this very goofy play where he flies over, doesn't quite have enough to see this Custodes that's holding one of his midfield objectives, double moves himself like 2 inches to see her, doom bolts her, and then the Lord of Forbidden Lord double moves him to the corner so he can signals. Very sick. So there you go. 4 on signals and also -5 to primary. You can send it over to the score sheet. Basically, at this point, that crystal squad that I throw, this is like what was left in my DZ after I killed his army. Magnus on 1, like a rubric squad, Araman with 2 buddies, the crystal squad's on that midfield objective that they're burning, and then there's a disc guy dueling a Wolfen over there. And then, so it ends up being a very crazy game. Bjorn finally comes out to play at the end. Bjorn reactive moves. I double doom bolt him. He goes away, and we end with a 70 to 63. So fantastic game to Linton. Really just like every turn, praying it's enough, and some very sweaty turns of us both pumping everything we have into Magnus, and he ends up living on 1. So.
Oh yeah, man. Nice. Wolf Jail Escape. All right. That brings us into round 5. Fortunately, all 3 of us at this point have been eliminated from contention, though Nick at 3-0-1 can definitely get a pretty nice placing if he can make this happen. We're playing Sweeping, Chilling Ritual. Ritual, very silly mission. We'll see how it goes. Lucas plays into our boy Tanner Herbert on the Custodes. Tanner's running a sick Custodes list. This is very Chad. He's got double Land Raiders, 2 Warden bricks, 2 Guard bricks, Draxus, a Custodes, Trajan, and 2 captains, 1 Uncareless Hunter, 1 Veiled Blade. Very cool little list. Kind of does the thing. The Land Raiders are like cheaper Calladii that are a little bit less effective at shooting, but also, assault ramp transports, which solve some of the Custodes problems. I think this list is super cool. Hey, there he is. Sorry, Tanner Lucas is not here to discuss this matchup at this point. But basically, Tanner ran it in with everything, and Lucas couldn't kill it.
I think there was a moment before the game where Tanner turned to Lucas and said, "Hey, dude, I need you to not get mad when I scam your cars with these las cannons." Lucas is like, "Yeah, sure." And then the Land Raiders scam the cars with the las cannons. I know Lucas says, or no, you said you hate Wardens. And also Lucas learned to hate Wardens this game as Tanner marches Wardens out, tanked a ridiculous amount of shooting from what I hear, and then punched his way out of the death guard, basically. So
I got to watch most of this game.
Oh, yeah.
And Tanner literally just like put all 10 Wardens out and was like, "What are you going to do about it?" And Lucas was like, "I'm going to fire every gun and charge with every single one." I think there were like 6 of the 10 left. Tanner says 1 Warden squad tanked like 20 Plague Marines and a tank. Yeah, this is not good. Custodes are scammy. This is a thing that happens sometimes. It's very funny because Lucas has been saying this like every single time he's played into Custodes. Lucas has said this. He's been like, "Oh man, if they would just put all their stuff out right in my face, I would just lose." But no one does that, so it's fine. And then Tanner did it, and it wasn't fine. Props to Tanner for pulling this one off. And that is the end of Lucas's run. I am also playing into Custodes again. And in the interest of time, just going through this list real quick. This is into Jeremy. We got Double Blade Champ, 1 Veil Blade, 1 Careless Hunter, sorry. The Shield Captain, Trajan, 2x5 Guard, 1x4 Guard, 5 Alaris, kind of a neat little tech piece there, 5 Wardens, 2x4 Witch Seekers, and a Custodes, so no Draxus. This is a matchup that I've just played a lot at this point. I know all the beats really comfortably, and Jeremy did not. We're playing sweeping, so that's already a big advantage for me because it makes it really easy to get around. He deployed Trajan Squad, which was a big mistake because then I just know how to avoid them. Turn 1, he went first, ran up with a squad of Wardens, spawned an objective, and like had a squad of a Blade Champ and Guard Squad kind of running up a flank. That flank is so damn isolated. I dropped the Monolith over by it, get the Warriors out, obliterate the Blade Champ and their squad, spawn an objective. I took Cleanse Homer, which I'd like to do on this mission. Got an 8 on secondary, passed it over to him. He got a 5 on primary, and then kind of ran forward, and then I dropped in and killed Trajan and his squad and move blocked everything with the warriors, and that's kind of the whole game right there. Finishes up 100 to 25. This army is really good at the ritual. Scrambler fields or not, but especially without scrambler fields. And the Custodes were not remotely ready for it.
Yeah, you took Cleanse Homer, right?
Yep, Cleanse Homer. It's great. Since we've had the rules change where you can hold objectives at the end of the turn now, so you can cleanse them even though they weren't spawned yet. It's great. Means a single squad of Scarabs is usually cleansing 2 objectives at once, which is awesome. Homer is really easy on this one. 3-inch Deep Strike my Transcendent to get it on turn 1, and meanwhile I blitzed a Locust up the side of the table, knowing that the unit that was over there was about to die, and then turn 2 he just finished walking into my opponent's DZ. There's the other 16 points on Homer's already there. There's just not like a ton that he can do at that point. The Warriors totally shut these guys down. He doesn't have any guns because he doesn't have any Caladi. Doesn't even have a Draxus squad.
And the Guard,
yeah,
the Guard are a big weakness in Necrons because the Wardens is what makes it hard to commit your units with Hypercrypt because they just pop a Feel No Pain and you bounce. The Guard, though, are like just pick them off each turn with Warriors, especially if they don't go to ground.
Exactly. Sweet. And then it is Nick's turn to go back in Wolf Jail, baby. Let's go. He is playing into our boy Colby, who just played into me there. So I'm not going to run through the list again. It's that same one with the 10 2x5 Wolfen and the Inceptor squads. How did Wolf Jail Part 2 go, Nick?
Yeah, so this one's on Ritual Sweeping, which is, I mean, sweeping is kind of similar to Dawn of War. You're still very close together. The terrain, at least this time, move block Colby a little bit more. So I tried to use that to my advantage. And a nice thing about sweeping compared to Dawn, at least for his like turn 1 Ingress or turn 1 Strat Reserve unit, is my DZ like is very, very big. So he can't come into my DZ turn 1. So he can either come way off on the corner, that doesn't matter, or he can come in like up here. And if I go first, I can push my screen up way more. So it's like he's coming basically into his DZ. So yeah, this one I went first, which was unfortunate. I actually think going second into Space Wolves this season is fantastic because their only game plan is to run right at you, and then you're able to choose what you want to hit them with immediately. So you basically get a whole turn of, you know, shooting and punching, which is fantastic. I opted to go with the muted screening again, which worked out very well. Putting Magnus right behind them, putting, you know, the rubrics right behind them. I put the Disc Sorcerers in such a way that if they went first, actually he did put one of his squads like completely behind a wall because it's Eliad in his DZ, so I couldn't slow one of the squads, but I did put a Disc Sorcerer to slow another squad if I went first. I also set it up so if I went first, my Disc Sorcerer could fly out, slow that squad, and Doombolt it, and my Lord of Forbidden Lore guy could walk up, be next to the Mutalith that was screening with 6 of it, so he gets a 36-inch Doombolt downtown as well. Because one of the big downsides of going first is losing out on all that Cabal and not getting, you know, the amount of damage that you could out of it. So Ritual's a bit weird. Spawning objectives, I don't have that many units because I'm using one of my Zangors to screen and keeping one off the board for potential secondaries later on in the game or potential primary denial. So I'm going to have to spawn with rubrics, which means I'm going to have to kind of put them in harm's way. Also, I know that he's going to get that end of game primary, but really that doesn't matter too much because this game kind of comes down to whether he kills me in 3 turns or not. We also, so basically what happens is walk the Mutalith screen up, push the screens up, start spawning an objective. Or no, I move Magnus into a position where he would spawn an objective, right? I'm like, he's going to spawn. I fly the Disc Sorcerer over, slow that one squad of Thunderwolves, and then we go to end of movement. And he goes, I'm going to ingress this squad in. And I go, you know, I could double move Magnus at the start of shooting to see that squad you just ingress and shoot you. And Colby was like, yeah, not much I can do about that. Which then made me realize, holy cow, ingressing into T-Suns is cursed.
It's so bad, dude. It's so bad.
Yeah. If you ever try to set up like an ingress charge into Magnus, he just walks away.
We're like, I feel like usually use ingress just to be safe. Be like, hey, I'm going to ingress behind a wall over here. And you just can't do that. Just can't.
Oh, according to Colby, we played on the same table you guys played on. So
yeah, in the very back corner there. Yeah.
So I end up doom bolting the squad that only the disc guy can see, and slowing it. And I think I should have actually. I think it's because Magnus couldn't get with an 18 was the thing, and couldn't get next to the Muta. I don't know. Maybe I should just double doom bolted that. But I threw a doom bolt at the other squad. I opt to go, okay, well, start of the shooting, we're double moving Magnus to shoot these guys. Screw spawning an objective. I'd love a free turn of damage. 1 CP, full hit and wound reroll. That combined with Doombolt, kaboom, I think like 4 wolves died. Like, so his squad goes down to 2 wolves and 2 characters. And Colby's like, holy cow, this is the most amount of damage I've ever taken turn 1 from anyone. But he does what he needs to do and runs right at me. So he runs at me with both of those squads. So the small squad and the big squad. They hit the Muta. They kill the Muta. Now they're in front of Magnus. Slowed squad gets to the midfield. I think they pounce on the disc guy there, even though they're slow. No, they're behind the wolf. The wolfen run up and just kill the disc guy. Cool. So he's got midfield. He's got objective spawned. I've lost 1 disc guy. I've got like, some like a small squad of wolves in my face and a full squad of wolves in my face. And so the full squad of wolves, I believe I double doom bolt, and then I don't throw any shooting at them because they're too close. The other squad, I'm trying to remember how I did this, but basically what ends up happening is Magnus ends up in melee with the Thunderwolf squads, and I also start charging with some of my like rubrics, like Airman, because he's got the 3 damage stick. And we end up getting the really small squad down to like a character, and the big squad down to like both the characters. So we've killed like all the Thunderwolves over there through combination of shooting and double doom bolting and punching with Magnus. And the midfield squad that pounced on, or that was slowed, is no longer slowed and is now in position to go like full ham into Magnus. So this is Magnus is at full. Colby realizes, okay, like bottom 2. If I kill Magnus, like I win the game. So he oaths him. He drops in his Plascepters. He auto advances that squad that was originally slowed. Blast them across the board. They're only missing 1 wolf because I could do both of them turn 1. And so he charges Magnus with that squad. He's not able to charge him with anything else because the squad kind of move blocks him. So it's basically the shooting gets him down to 10, and then he starts punching me. And the punching gets me down to 5, I think. It doesn't do that much damage. It's like 5 or 6. And now Magnus is in combat with the squad, so he's able to punch it and shoot it without getting blood surged. And then like all of the rubrics are now in melee. So all of the rubrics are running around. We're finishing off these like random characters. We're doom bolting these random characters. But we still have the waves of Wolfen. I think at some point it was either turn 2 or turn 3. He had his 1 squad of 10 Wolfen fly up, and I overwatched it with the Super Flamer guy. And the Super Flamer guy rolled 12 on his number of shots. And then the normal Flamers rolled 18 on their number of shots. And I killed 6 Wolfen in Overwatch. And then they failed their 6-inch rerollable charge. And Colby was like, oh god, this is cursed. And then there was another squad of 5 Wolfen that ran over and tried to kill a disc guy next to a Muta. But because he rolled low on his charge, only 2 could punch the disc guy. And they couldn't kill the disc guy. So him and the Muta punched their way out of 5 Wolfen. And now it's like I've got a Muta and a disc guy roving around in the midfield. I've got Crystal guy that I teleport over like top of 3 to start killing Colby's backfield and denying his primary. And now Magnus is like alive on 2 with just some remnant guys to walk around and kill. And this is, I believe, either top of 3 or top of 4 when this happens. And then Colby basically tells me, like, the instant you move Magnus, I'm going to overwatch you with these Plascepters. And I was like, well, what if I moved in the shooting phase so you couldn't do that? And he was like, oh god, oh fuck, oh no. And that's what happens, is the remaining rubrics and Magnus fly over and kill all the Plascepters, kill the Fenrisian wolves. Colby's got nothing left.
Damn. Brutal. So
yeah, it ends up being
first round, we narrowly break out of wolf jail. Second round, we shatter the chains that bind.
65 to
fucking
30
go,
for the
dude.
1,000 Suns. Yeah.
Oh man.
But basically, it was just. No, sorry. Go ahead.
How much of the distinction do you think here is the difference in lists, the difference in mission, the different deployment? What do you think is different between this and the game of Linton?
I mean, definitely the terrain helps here. The terrain, as you can see, like that L, like slowed Colby more. I was able to use the terrain better with Magnus nearby it, so that like it would limit the amount of stuff punching him. The mission as well. I mean, Colby had a lot more like trash, so he was actually able to spawn objectives. I think if I played Linton on this mission, it would have gone way worse for Linton than it would have gone for Colby. Because like the Wolfen can spawn objectives, but they can't hold them because they're OC0. So yeah, I think that was like a definitely a boon. The Plasceptors are also terrifying because like the first time Linton walked into Magnus, it was grenades that knocked him to 12, and then punching knocked him to like 7. Here, before I even get to the fight phase, I'm knocked to 10 from Colby's shooting. And I don't even think he remembered the grenades in this game. Like, that would have been even worse. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that the shooting, the Plasceptors are certainly a lot scarier for Thousand Suns. They also threaten rubrics quite well. But really, it kind of just the way I was playing and the way that my opponents played this matchup, it really comes down to Magnus needs to shoot and fight as many times as possible. And if he goes down like turn 2 before all the Thunderwolves are dead, you don't really have a way to fight your way out. Because a big thing for both of the games was using like the mutas to basically be like, all right, I'm going to shoot you with Magnus, and you can blood surge into like mutas or Zangors, right? And then Magnus will charge you now. So you have like one turn of that, then they kill your screens, and then the next wave shows up. And when the next wave shows up, it's like Magnus is the closest thing. So you can't shoot Magnus into the thing he wants to charge, because then they'll blood surge into you and they'll get to activate first because you didn't charge. So you actually have to throw Magnus' shooting somewhere else and like double Doombolt the unit because it doesn't count as a shooting attack, and then charge it and hope that that's enough. So there's a lot of like, you know, he's got a ton of 4-up Invulns. Like, we got to slow him down as much as possible. We got to double Doombolt every turn. And we got to hope that there's one turn where he gets to hit me with a bunch of stuff into Magnus, and I got to sink as many resources as I can to keep him alive. So, yeah, cool. That's that's kind of what I learned from that. Yeah.
That's how you break out of wolf jail. Sweet. So at the end of the event, we end up with Lucas 3-2, myself 4-1, and yourself 4-0-1 after that early draw into the Grey Knights. Wild nonsense. But big shout outs to our winners of the event. Our best sport went out to our boy Seth Taylor. Love that dude. Our best painter went out to Tarzan, who's become a local people's champion recently. He has some incredible looking orcs. And our best general was the man himself, Donald Plummer of Team Aegis. Big shout out to Donald for providing a bunch of the terrain for driving down and for spanking everybody. He won the finals against Daniel Minland, the Grey Knight player who defeated Lucas in round 2. So props to him for making it work.
Donald's first GT win, I believe. So
that's awesome.
I know he's been chasing that for a while. He's been a 4.
Good for him.
For quite a long time.
He kicks a lot of ass, and I mean a nice send off for the old Tau Index before moving on into our new Tau Codex Overlords. Sweet. You have any closing thoughts, reflections on the event, Nick?
I mean, kind of like stuff we covered at the beginning. Like, this event was really fun, but most of what made it fun was like, 55 people, 30 of them were people we like knew well, and then like there's 3 new people I played, and yeah, like all of them like made instant friends with. So, that's part of what made this event super fun. I think if this event wants to continue to grow and like do better than it did this year, look to improve on things, look to make a better venue, look to communicate more with your players ahead of time. I know that like the venue change happened very last minute, and wasn't communicated until like a month beforehand, when it was known like a few months beforehand or something. So like, just, communicate with people. Like, people in their communities want to help support their events. But you just got to let them know what's going on,
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's been a lot of movement in our local scene about things like mission choices being a little more standardized. So I'm excited to see where that goes. The organizing of this event is what it is. There was a lot that went into it, and I really appreciate all the people who came in and made it the best of a not phenomenal situation. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's Warhammer. It's going to be fun, and it's pretty hard to keep that from happening in spite of itself. So that is our thoughts on Rosehammer. Let's burn through a couple of listener questions here before we sign off, as we are approaching that 2.5 hour mark pretty rapidly. If you had a question that was asked for Lucas in particular, I will make sure that he answers those via messaging in the Discord. That is, say, if you want to have your questions answered, you can ask them in the Discord in our section. There's a thread that shows up every week based on our thing. So under heading the show in the channel, take all questions, there's a show questions thread that'll appear for the particular chats. That's where you can ask them. You can also ask via super chat in YouTube to make sure that your chat question is covered, or just ask a really good question in the YouTube chat, and maybe we'll get to it. So first question from Griggs asks, how do Custodes deal with Hypercrypt? Go to ground. Go to ground. Go to ground. Put Trajan with the Wardens. Please put Trajan with the Wardens. Please stop putting Trajan with the Guard. Tanks.
And also
the tanks
in the sky.
Yeah, put Trajan with the Wardens in the sky. Ingress. Take Caladi. They are mandatory. Stop greeting and taking 6 bricks. Play the tanks. Those are the things. If once someone does all of those things and like doesn't make any stupid mistakes, I will probably lose that game. It hasn't happened yet, but I believe that it's possible. Isaac asks, what is the best strategy for Hypercrypt dealing with Blood Angels? I've been practicing it a bit, and it keeps coming down to rolling 4-up invulns. Blood Angels depends on the list. I haven't actually gotten to play into this yet, so this is going to be a little bit of theory crafting. But they're not taking as many jump pack dudes as they used to be. But as a general rule of thumb, shoot the jump packs, move block the foot dudes, rinse and repeat. A lot of times they're playing these land raiders. A Redeemer does not overwatch nearly enough warriors to prevent the warriors from wrapping it. That's just not real. So figure out where they can and can't go and avoid it being in those places. The Death Company obliterate Catan, obviously, so keep them away from that. But yeah, spacing, take shots. Anything you have to add to that, Nick?
No, that's one I gotta practice more. You're not gonna crack the Land Raider. Your army's very bad at killing it outside of like the Void Dragon and melee. The Warrior Brick can
just scam it.
Yeah, but it's not reliable, right? Like you're not gonna point at the Land Raider and be like, I'm killing that this turn. Not gonna happen.
No.
Like any pressure army, you gotta slow them down. You can't expose too much. If you try to go like, fist fight them or like 1-for-1 them, like they'll trade up and kill your shit. So like play it carefully, slow them down, trade effectively, score your points.
Remember that you're a shooting army. Like I know Catan Punch, but you're a shooting army, so shoot them.
Yeah.
Sweet. Goran, aka Red Rum, asks, how old are you guys and what's the origin story of TAC? What are your short-term and long-term goals? I'm 24. Lucas will be 25 in like a month. Nick, you're still 26?
I'm still 26, yep.
Nick's still 26. We go into our origin story in detail in the first episode, but as a general rule, we're all Portland transplants. Nick from Southern Oregon, Lucas and myself from the Bay Area of California. All ended up there for school, met at a competitive league and became good friends, took on a lot of tournaments, and were noticed by the Best in Tabletop Network. Back when that was a thing, we got picked up by them to run a show for a while. And then when that network dissolved, we moved over here as we are all members of Team USA and good friends with the other Stat Check guys. So we're very happy to be here. Gabe asks, what is the best example of a cheese build in 40K you guys can think of? What is the 6-pool or cannon rush of 40K? I assume those are video game terms for a game I don't play. Do you know what either of those things are?
Never heard of them.
No. What do you think is the cheesiest list in Warhammer right now? Whatever that means to you.
I don't know. Cheese builds are probably those that spam like the same data sheet, or you hear a lot of cheese when it's like, especially like vehicles. Yeah, I think probably like the funniest build might be that like Nemesis Dread Knight 3 Land Raider build that's going around. That's sometimes like 1 Land Raider. It's very goofy.
Yeah, really the German version is the best version with the 6 Dread Knights, the Land Raider, and Canis. That was hilarious.
That's StarCraft apparently. Well, cool. That sounds cool.
Cool.
That's
Yeah,
really
whatever.
cool.
I think also the Gladiator spam builds in Ironstorm are pretty cheesy right now. Anyone who takes advantage of the Black Templar Gladiator glitch, shame on you. I know Innis doesn't. Like a lot of the players, it ends up not being worthwhile because you want to take a couple of each. And you just rather have the Templar versions, but whatever the case.
Space Wolves could probably be seen as pretty cheesy because it's just like Control C, Control V, push towards opponent. On paper, there's some minutia in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, I think I had a good answer to this. Cheesy list or any list that try to alpha your opponent if there's bad terrain. I'm calling Tanner out directly, dude. That's
absolutely
stuff, dude.
100%. Tyler, how many Cyclops demolition vehicles fit in your mouth?
Well, his are all resin, so please don't put them in your mouth.
Yeah, that sounds like. I mean, they only exist in resin, whether it's poured resin or printed resin. So I don't think so. Lucas, Lancer, when he's never gonna play it, man. He's never gonna play it.
When he plays as a GW only event, maybe, but WTC no go.
Yeah. Eric Cultus Chan, who I think was in chat earlier, asks, "What is the best way to deal with Hypercrypt as a Storm Raven, Dark Angels, Ironstorm?" I have not played this matchup, so I can't speak to it overly directly. Remember that smoke exists if you're playing vehicles into Hypercrypt, and that it gives you cover. It's very good. But yeah,
AOC,
shoot them.
Also quite good.
Yeah, AOC is great. Kill the trash is the big thing. You have a plane that can see stuff. All the small piddly units, if they go away on turn one, the Hypercrypt player's life gets a lot more challenging. Keep the Storm Raven outside of Catan range. Crazy, I know. That includes 9-inch charging Catan range. If it's as bad of a matchup as it seems like it might be, I'm just going to raw dog 3 9s at you, and one of them is going to hit. So don't let me do that. Stay out of the midboard, or stay out of the edges. Stay in midboard. How much value do infiltrators have against Hypercrypt? Would you take 1 unit or 2? They have immense value against Hypercrypt. It's great.
Even just one on your backfield's fantastic. It denies all those backfield secondaries. If on a lot of the missions where you get primary, they're never stealing that primary from you.
Yeah, just set it and forget it. Don't get frisky about it. Whenever I play into infiltrators, people so often want to infiltrate them and like try to start stuff in the midboard. I'm just going to shoot it. It's going to die. Don't do that.
Just use them to lock down points. Hide them behind the walls.
Yeah. Lastly, Marshall, the Glacier Laser asks, how would each of you approach a Sisters of Battle matchup with your respective factions? I assume you're going to think about this for a sec, so I'll go first. I've played Sisters with the Hypercrypt. A big thing is Rhino locking. If the Warriors never let the Arcos or whatever out of the Rhinos or Immolators or what have you, it goes real bad for the Sisters. So try to do that on repeat. Vol Squad is going to be a problem if they're taking the Volgons because, Melta, so don't let that unit get to you. They want to ingress from strat reserves, which is like a very easy thing to prevent with this army, so don't let that happen. Fight in the middle, put a lot of OC in places, and don't get melted off the board. It's not a particularly challenging matchup in my experience yet. It's not an easy one to smash because, obviously they score really well. They have a lot of little units, but I don't think they have the tools to really be a super big threat to Hypercrypt. How do you feel about Sisters with the T-Suns, Nick?
With T-Suns, I think the big thing there is just they're going to have more stuff than you early. Don't get too frisky with them early. Try to double Doombolt Rhinos. On average, you do 10 mortals with 2 Doombolts. Kills a Rhino. And then kill the contents inside. I don't know what the general output of Magnus full hit and wound reroll is into Arcos. Probably pretty bad for the Arcos. You've got a lot of Overwatch. It seems like at some point you just remove the threats to Magnus, and then he gets to run rampant through their army, and then you also get to zoom the rubrics out. It seems a little bit worse if there's exorcists involved. Obviously, I didn't really play any Rhinos on my list or anything. I know some people play them because T-Suns are super weak to indirect. If I was playing in a more indirect heavy meta, I'd probably bring a Rhino for the disc guys to start in, because the disc guys are generally some of the most important. They give you 2 Cabal, they slow things down, they spot for Magnus, they're really fast. But standard Sisters list, it just seems like remove their trash and then let Magnus go have his fun.
Sounds like a plan. Sweet. That is all the listener questions that we've got for today, which means that is the end of the show. If you want to keep the conversation going, once again, head over to patreon.com/statchecks, linked in the description. Check out some of our great channel sponsors down there to purchase such things as terrain, Warhammer models, new and used, and widgets, all available at varying shipping rates depending on where you happen to be located in the world, but they're all really high quality if you're willing to pay that price. If you're interested in coaching, that's also something that is offered by a couple members of the team. I know that some members of this show are also working to get involved in that as well, so look forward to that in the future. But head over to the website to check that out in details. I know that I think currently it's Innis, Typhus, Jeremy, and maybe Pumba. I don't remember. But there's lots of great coaching to be had over there. But the most important thing is get the conversation going. We'll be in the YouTube comments as well as in the Discord if you want on a drop stuff there. Remember that following us and whatnot, interacting on the digital space is almost more valuable than money. So we really appreciate that, especially those YouTube subscribers. Someday we'd like to get GW product and YouTube subscribers the way that you do that. But with that all being said and done, thank you so much for joining us. I've been Tyler.
I've been Nick.
And Lucas is off in the ether playing his scrim game because he thought that this show would be over in under 2 hours, which in my experience has never been done before. So I respect him level of confidence that we could keep it light and tight. Anyway, we will catch y'all next week for some more Take All Comers. We're going to talk about something else with Warhammer. It's not a tournament, though. Look forward to seeing you then. Take care.